Before we dive into this amazing novel, a quick shout out. If you're enjoying these audiobooks, you can support the author and help bring more incredible content. Your support makes a huge difference. The link is in the description. Check it out. Now let's begin. Hela's POV. King Hel. I swear I want to kill myself. I've been in this place for more than 2,000 years. Well, technically it's been just one. But trust me, even one day here is enough to make someone go insane. I mean, come on. I'm the kind of person who couldn't eat without my phone in hand. Walking, eating, sleeping, whatever. It was always there. I hated being bored. To fight it, I touched every entertainment medium known to man. I was a connoisseur of distractions: anime, manga, movies, webtoons, novels, games, music, sports, you name it, I binged it. Kept my mind occupied, kept me from feeling the endless void of emptiness that gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. But now I'm stuck in a place where there's no entertainment, no distractions, no escape. Just this nothing. Now imagine someone like me, someone who used to be glued to a screen or plugged into a song, suddenly trapped in an endless expanse of darkness. I mean, it's not like I was one of those perfectly zen types who can meditate for hours. Hell, I could barely sit still long enough to finish a book for school, and now here I am, unable to do anything but sit in this oppressive silence, with nothing but my own mind to keep me company. It's maddening. I counted every single crack on the ground. I've examined every inch of this place, memorized every curve of the walls and the texture of the stone beneath my feet. I've touched every rock, giving them names. Yeah, I know how pathetic that sounds. One of them's called Rocky. I swear to God, he's a judgmental bastard. Sometimes I talk to him pretending he's got some personality. But he doesn't respond. None of them do. I've lost track of how many times I've spoken to myself at this point. It's like I'm begging for some semblance of interaction, some proof that I'm not truly alone. But no matter how much I scream, how much I beg, nothing happens. Nothing ever changes. There's no sun, no moon, no time, no clock. Just this endless, suffocating nothing. No morning, and no night. No way to tell if it's been hours or years. Just silence, crushing, ever-present silence that gnaws at your mind, pulling at the threads of sanity inch by inch until you're left wondering if you even existed before this. I don't even know what's worse, the physical emptiness or the overwhelming psychological weight of the silence. The host has survived 365 days in the Marvel Universe. Current threat: Odin. Reward: Astral projection information. **T. Another seemingly useless skill, I muttered to myself, reading the notification that had appeared in front of my face. This is my so-called cheat. For every day I survive in this godforsaken place, I get a reward based on how dangerous the day was. You'd think after a year of endless isolation, I'd get something truly powerful, something that could help me escape. Maybe a goddamn spaceship, or at least some kind of useful communication device to make contact with someone, anyone, just to remind myself that I'm not completely insane. But no. Instead, I get astral projection. I roll my eyes and throw my hands up in the air. Really? Astral projection? What the hell am I supposed to do with that? Let me back up a second. Over the past year, what haven't I gotten? I mean, the system is generous in its rewards. Among the most useful were the Hito Hito no me, the fruit that grants the ability to turn into a human, the Super Soldier Serum, Capsule Corp capsules. First glance, they sound amazing. Who wouldn't want to turn into a superhuman, right? Who wouldn't want access to capsules that could hold practically anything? But honestly, when you can crush Thor's hammer with your bare hands, what good is the Super Soldier Serum? I'm essentially unstoppable already. No one can touch me. And as for the Capsule Corp stuff? What the hell am I supposed to do with capsules that could store infinite amounts of stuff when there's nothing here to store? I don't even have food or water. What use is it? Hell, the Hito Hito no me might have been cool if I had an animal to feed it to. There's literally not a single living being here. No, all I've got are these goddamn cracks in the floor and my so-called friends, who are nothing more than rocks and imaginary conversations in my head. Oh right. Did I mention that I'm in Hela's body now? Yeah. That's a fun little twist. Don't ask me how. Miracle? Curse? I don't know. But somehow I ended up in this godforsaken version of hell, the Asgardian afterlife. I'm not talking about hell as humans know it, the fire and brimstone stuff. No, this is hell where all the bad souls go. It's supposed to be a place of torment, but there's nothing here. Just emptiness. Everyone else? Gone. Erased. Every single soul that would have been here? Obliterated by the original Hela. I should have expected it. Hela, the goddess of death, the one who ruled over hell, had no need for anyone else here. And as for me, well, my arrival here wasn't exactly planned. If anything, I suspect it was more of a cosmic joke, some mistake, or perhaps a cruel twist of fate. A twist that would trap me in the body of someone as powerful, as terrifying, and as lonely as Hela herself. I can still remember how I died. It's like it happened yesterday. I was living in the modern world, just a regular person with regular ambitions and a regular life. A life filled with distractions, yes, but a life nonetheless. Until I was killed. As for how and why I was killed, well, that's kinda embarrassing, let's skip this part for now. Anyway, I never got the chance to finish what I started. I never got to say goodbye. And I never expected to wake up here. Here, in the cold, empty halls of hell with Hela's memories and power flowing through me and her body too. I remember how she'd felt when she stood at the top of her domain, fierce, untouchable, and utterly alone. It's almost like I'm living in a shadow of a shadow now. The memories from her life, her reign with Odin, everything she has mixed with mine, and it's hard to separate the two. But there's no escape. No way to undo what's been done. I get up from where I've been sitting, dusting off the non-existent dirt from my still beautiful dark green attire. The emptiness surrounds me, crushing me from all sides. My footsteps sound in the vast void, but no one is there to hear it. I hate it here. Day 1, reward minor healing factor. Day 7, reward Jimpa. Day 21, reward accursed sword forged by Surtur himself. Day 50, reward Capsule Corp capsules. Day 100, reward Super Soldier Serum. Day 200, reward Hito Hito no me. This list? Yeah, this could easily be mistaken for a gamer's fantasy wishlist or the scribbled dreams of a delusional power trip junkie. But for me, it's just, well, Tuesday. Or at least, what passes for Tuesday in a place where time doesn't exactly follow conventional rules. Call it a resume. Call it a reward log. Call it the journal of an overpowered, half-insane exile stuck in limbo with powers I didn't ask for and memories I probably shouldn't have. Whatever you call it, this is what I've got. And despite the absurdity, not all of them are useless. Take Shua, for example. That little gem was a blessing. A high-speed movement technique used by Shinigami in the Bleach universe. When I first saw it pop up as a reward on Day 7, I laughed. I thought, sure, why not toss in some anime flash step nonsense into this whole mess? But boredom has a way of turning mockery into curiosity, and curiosity combined with 5 millennia of accumulated knowledge makes for a terrifying learning curve. You could say I mastered it at a glance. And maybe that's not entirely arrogance. With my unique constitution and affinity for soul manipulation, it didn't even feel like learning, just naturally did it, crossing 50 meters easily. Now, I can cross 3 to 5 kilometers in a single step. No flash, no roar, no explosive boom. Just silence, like the Grim Reaper walking across the battlefield. TCH. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if I dropped into the Bleachverse just for the hell of it. Imagine the look on their faces, Yoruchi, Byakuya, even that smug bastard Urahara, as I blurred past them with a Shua that defied even their physics. Ha! I can already hear the collective nanny. But I digress. Imagination's running wild again. It happens more frequently these days. Solitude does that to you. Especially when your only companion is a mute kid with big eyes and the emotional range of a rock. Today's reward, though? Astral projection. Made me pause. Yeah, that astral projection. The same one the Ancient One used on Strange and Banner in the MCU. The same technique that lets sorcerers separate their consciousness from their physical form and walk among the layers of the unseen world. First, I thought it was cool. Then I thought it was useless. Then I dug into Hela's memories, and that's when things got interesting. You see, Hela, the original one, not me, was never the meditative type. She was a weapon forged for war, not peace. A blade sharpened to slay Odin's enemies. She didn't have the luxury to sit under cherry blossom trees and contemplate the meaning of existence. But somewhere deep in her memories, probably tucked behind the endless bloodshed and carnage, was a faint recollection of the astral plane. Not remembering if she heard it from a long-dead sorcerer or someone she killed. It's a realm where physical matter doesn't exist in the traditional sense. Plane of consciousness. A mirror world where the mind is unshackled from flesh. That's when the gears in my head started turning. If the astral plane exists as an independent dimension not bound by the rules of the physical world, I murmured to myself, then could it act as a gateway? A bridge between realms? I glanced at Rocky. He's a kid. A weird, silent kid who showed up one day and just stayed. Doesn't talk. Doesn't eat. Doesn't blink. I named him Rocky because I have a wicked sense of irony and a deep appreciation for absurd humor, and not because he is a rock. Well? What do you think, Rocky? Anihor. Of course. Same expression. Same silence. P.S. Just her imagination, maybe? TSK. You think you're being cool with that brooding vibe, huh? Trust me, kid, it doesn't work. Not on me. And for the record, I don't like men. Let alone children. You're not my type. Nothing. I sighed and let it go. Rocky wasn't going to laugh at my jokes. Wasn't going to throw back a sarcastic jab. Honestly, he wasn't even breathing, but I've learned not to question things here. Instead, I sat down on the edge of the jagged cliff that overlooked a void of swirling, cosmic nothingness. A fitting metaphor for my existence. And then I began to seriously consider the implications. The astral plane doesn't function like our world. It's not defined by time or space as we know it. Distance is malleable. Time is subjective. In some stories, entire journeys through the astral plane pass in what amounts to a blink in the physical world. I remember that scene, was it in the comics or in the movies? Strange's consciousness yanked out of his body, flung through dimensions, all while his tea was still hot when he returned. Oh yeah, finally King good rewards. If I can go to Earth even if it's with my astral body whom I can't directly interfere with the physical world, I can at least watch many interesting. I could even be like the Ring Grandpa in Chinese cultivation novel guiding juniors like Wanda who should be able to see astral body and make them use the space gem to free me, giggity giggity. I was really happy gaining something that could help me escape. Still, I hope it's not like the cursed sword from day 21. Oh, Surtur. You flaming moron. For a guy who's supposed to forge world-ending weapons, you really dropped the ball with this one. The sword looks cool at a glance. Blackened metal, runes, a faint hellfire glow. Very edgy. I'm definitely compensating for something. But functionally, it's about as sharp as a butter knife after a long bath. Seriously. I tried to slice through a training dummy created from one of the capsule corp pods, thank you very much, and the blade bounced off. I'm 90% sure Surtur was drunk when he made it. Or maybe hungover. Or both. But hey, it makes for a good back scratcher. After cursing Surtur, I clicked on the rewards and instantly a flood of memories emerged in my mind about how one can leave the astral body state, how to enter the astral plane, how to leave the astral plane, how to return to the body, how to use one's own power in the astral body, and many more information about the astral plane, etc. Well, after these revelations, I even understand why the original Hela didn't know how to do it. The astral plane was simply a place where one goes if they need to find peace. How could the goddess of death need peace? Still, I couldn't help but have a wild imagination. Hela with her bald head, robes flowing, sipping tea with the Ancient One. "Peace and love, brother," she'd say. I'd pay to see that crossover that would make Odin doubt his whole existence. Anyway, she can't but I can. I was dumped into this realm and expected to rot here like a prisoner with powers but no purpose, at least until Odin's death. So if this astral projection lets me peek at the real world, even just for a second, I'm going to make the most of it. So I immediately started trying like with the information in my head, and God, it was strange. And beautiful, forget I'm a goddess myself should change my way of speaking. I was focused, sitting cross-legged, levitating in the air. I closed my eyes, centered my breathing, and followed the instructions that came with the reward. Vague, mystical nonsense about letting go of the weight of the world. Didn't have much weight left anyway. And then, I was out. My body slumped gently, still and calm. And I floated upward. Weightless. Untethered. Free.
Hey, everyone. If you enjoy my quantum audiobooks, you can support me by becoming a Patreon member. Your support helps me keep creating, and you'll get exclusive perks. You can also access my audiobooks directly through Google Drive. Check out the link in the description. Now, let's get started.
When I opened my eyes, the first thing I noticed wasn't some flashing lights or divine orchestra or even a typical booming narrator voice saying, "Welcome to the astral plane." Nope. It was silence. Pure silence. But not the eerie kind, more like the kind of peaceful hush you'd get standing alone in a vast open snowfield. Cold, quiet, and strangely comforting. Till something was off. You know that feeling when you take off your school bag after a whole day and your shoulders suddenly feel feather-light? Multiply that by 1,000. That's what I felt. Like I'd been dragging something heavy with me every second of my previous life, and only now did I realize it wasn't normal to feel that weighed down. And get this, I could see my body. Like literally, it was right in front of me. Just chilling there. Not levitating anymore, just kind of floating downward slowly like some majestic corpse drifting through jelly. Weird, right? But it wasn't scary. In fact, it was fascinating. In my past life, I'd never really seen myself properly. Sure, I had mirrors, took a few selfies, stared into the occasional puddle during my emo phase, but that doesn't count. Mirrors lie. Photos distort. And don't even get me started on filters. Seeing myself now, Hela's body from the outside with no lens, no lighting tricks, no edits, it was kinda humbling. And you know what? I look damn fine. Yeah, no kidding. I used to think those Marvel movies exaggerated the beauty and badass vibes of the characters. I mean, sure, I watched them, read some comics, imagined what the real deal might be like, but it never captured the whole picture. The reality of this Marvel-esque world is way more intense. As I circled my body, I noticed the face. It did have a hint, just a tiny hint of that Hela look from the movies. You know, Cate Blanchett's version, all angular, cold beauty and danger wrapped in class. But I didn't have all that excessive glam like her spiky crown that I have thrown somewhere or heavy eye makeup. No, mine was rawer. More stripped down. Cleaner. Pure black hair cascading down my back like a waterfall of ink. Lips as dark as night, lashes like tiny blades, and green eyes that could probably make a god confess his sins. Seriously, if Gothic queens had an Olympus, I'd be their Zeus. Or Hades. Or both. Now the body? That's another thing. It wasn't fragile or overly slim like those beauty standard models. Nah, it was powerful. Warrior-like. Muscles in the right places, toned like someone who bench presses monsters for fun. But not too bulky, I wasn't some hulking beast. More like an Amazonian warrior forged by divine aesthetics. The curves? Oh, let's not even pretend I wasn't packing. If I had to compare myself to anyone, maybe someone like Tsunade from Naruto with a few extra layers of elegance and mystique. I looked like I could crush your skull and tuck you in for bed depending on my mood. And yes, I know some Earthlings would take one look and call me mommy. Gross? Maybe. Accurate? Definitely. My skin, though, that was the odd part. Instead of that jade skin from Chinese female lead you'll think of, mine was pale, almost ghostly white. Not in a sickly way, but in a this lady will cast a curse on you and still look fabulous kinda way. Honestly, it clashed with what you'd expect from being Odin's daughter, but hey, genetics are a mystery, and Odin probably wasn't exactly winning over my birth mother, though well, my birth circumstances are a little strange, so I would like not to talk about it. Why does life always want to F***CK with me like this? I screamed, not out loud, but in that frustrated, soul-level kind of way. Instead of meeting my fantasies, I became one. What kind of plot twist is this? I mean, sure, since I know I'm reincarnated in Marvel, I used to fantasize about being surrounded by the hottest mutant babes from, like, imagine, Yandra Jean Grey with fire in her eyes and love in her fists. Thunder Rogue who'd act like she hated me but couldn't stop touching my soul, literally. Cool as ice Storm with those eyes and that voice. Quiet Kitty Pryde blushing whenever I walked by. And let's not forget Squirrel Girl whose tail ahem we're not gonna talk about. But now I am the fantasy. Till it's not all bad. If I play this right, maybe I can meet them. I hope it's in universe where mutants exist. Don't give a f***ck about how dangerous it can be. And if not, well, I'll damn well find a way to go to that universe for real. I'm stubborn like that. But first things first, I needed to leave this damn place. Anyway, I was technically already in the astral plane, or at least the surface level of it. Think of it like astral pre-gaming. I could see the physical world, hear sound of it, and if I really focused, I could maybe even poke into people's dreams or minds and even discuss with them assuming they had strong enough souls. The real goal? Get to Earth. But not just with my astral body, I wanted the full experience. Sights, smells, touch, food. Oh God, I missed food, even though I could not eat that for thousands of years and still be fine. And you know what's better than ambrosia or mystical god bread? Freakin' ramen. Earth food hits different. Problem, I couldn't take my body with me. Why? 'Cause Odin, bless his manipulative old soul, basically jacked up my body with runes. Powerful ones. He used his own life force to bind me to hell, essentially creating a magical prison out of my own flesh. Sweet, right? Real father-daughter bonding moment. The runes work like this. As long as Odin lives, my body can't leave hell. If it tries, it just shuts down. Goes limp. But here's the twist. Those same runes are draining his life the longer he maintains them. It's like tying a balloon to a leaking air tank. Sooner or later, something's gonna give. But lucky for me, he didn't count on one thing: astral projection. The original Hela didn't know how to use it. But I'm not the original. I'm me. And I've got a system. Cheat code, and thankfully I got astral projection. So yeah, Odin didn't see this coming. Till there's a risk. While I'm out here gallivanting in the astral plane, some soul snatcher or spiritual parasite could jump into my empty body. Happens all the time in myths and stories, especially in the Marvel world. Someone finds a pretty body lying around with no occupant? Jackpot. Instant new home. But I've made peace with it. Worst case? Someone steals my body. I just build a new one. I've got the system after all. As long as I've got that, I can do anything. So I sat, well, floated in the classic meditation pose. Legs crossed, hands resting, mind focused. Time to sink deeper into the astral plane. I needed to reach the second layer, the real meat of the astral experience. That's where the highways between worlds live. Let me explain. Imagine Earth and Hell are 2 points on a straight line, let's say 100 kilometers apart. Now between them is a thick wall. A barrier. Something ancient and stubborn that refuses to let souls or bodies pass. But the astral plane? It doesn't care about walls. It exists above them. A third axis. Like a bridge in the sky. A secret detour that goes around all the physical crap. By projecting my soul high enough, I can bypass that whole barrier thing. It's like skipping the toll road and taking a flying shortcut instead, although this shortcut is, well, millions if not billions of light kilometers. The best part? The astral plane doesn't follow normal rules. Space-time logic, those things bend and twist here. If your soul is strong enough, and mine is, thank you very much, you can cross entire galaxies in a heartbeat. And that's exactly what I plan to do. Earth, I'm coming. With all my sass, my powers, and my chaotic energy. And if the X-Men are there? Oh, boy. Let the games begin. To inform you, I'm a die-hard Marvel fan, and that's also the reason I write my story. So, like most of you have already noticed, this is going to be a very original universe, neither the MCU nor the comics, just a blend of the two. You also need to be patient. I don't want to info dump and tell you everything right away. Instead, I want you to notice the changes and the responses to your questions in the story. POV. I always hated birthdays. Especially mine. So, 1974. I was born somewhere in Eastern Europe. Cool vibes, right? Wrong. For a third of that year, that was the day the universe decided to drop me into this lovely pile of garbage we call Earth. I was born in some unnamed hole-in-the-wall country buried deep in Eastern Europe, the kind of place where dictators grow like weeds and orphans like me get fed to the wolves. Literally. No parents, no photos, no toys, just smoke, blood, and the sweet scent of rebellion in the air. I don't even remember their faces. My parents, I mean. All I remember is growing up in an orphanage that smelled like cabbage and despair. The other kids called me Scarface before I even had a scar, which rude. But hey, kids are jerks. Then came the fire. Oh, the fire. Picture it, 1981. I'm 7, rocking pigtails and a questionable fashion sense. Plaid skirts were a choice. I'm sneaking into the kitchen to steal stale bread, orphan life hack. Dip it in water, boom, bread soup, when bim. Smoke. Creaming. Chaos. I tripped over a nun, yes, a nun. This place was grimy, and a burning beam fell on me. The right side of my face melted faster than a popsicle in hell. Enter Hydra. These dudes rolled up in black SUVs like they were angels in sleek leather and sharp suits. They took one look at my half-melted face and said, "We can fix that." And they did later, though I don't doubt they may be the cause of that fire. They had a lab full of shady serums that fixed my face. Sort of. Now I'm beautiful. Not cute. Not sweet. Beautiful in the way that made men forget how to speak and women want to strangle me. Then came the real fun. Training. Imagine a school where the curriculum includes poisons, espionage, martial arts, and psychological warfare. Also, your classmates might try to kill you in your sleep. No recess. No hugs. No good job stickers. Just pain, sweat, and the cold, mechanical voices of instructors who genuinely enjoyed watching children cry. They called us the Seeds. Dozens of us, all under 10, each one trained to be the perfect Hydra weapon. We learned everything: disguise, seduction, interrogation, tactics, every way to kill a person using a pen or a high heel. And when we turned 15, we learned. Poison Brewing 101. Add arsenic until it tastes like regret. Espionage for toddlers. Lie to your friends. Then stab them. Advanced SAS, mandatory class. I aced it. My classmates were unique. There was Boris, who could pick locks with his toes, don't ask, and Annie, who once ate a live spider to prove a point. Our dorm was a concrete box with bunk beds and a poster that said "Hail Hydra" in Comic Sans. Inspirational. The worst part? Hydra's cafeteria. The food was so bad we used it as bait during explosives training. Rumor has it the meatloaf was 40% rat. The other 60%? Hope. But I thrived. By 12 I could. Disarm a nuke, probably. Forge a president's signature, definitely. Win a staring contest with a literal statue. Hydra tested this. They called me Viper because I was sneaky and venomous. I called myself Viper because it sounded cooler than Ophelia. Teen years? Word. Imagine puberty but with more assassinations. 16, Hydra sent me on my first solo mission. Infiltrate a Swiss boarding school and steal a briefcase full of important stuff. Turns out to be a test. The stuff was a billionaire's collection of Captain America's figurine. Hydra's a weird client to be killed probably. By 19, I'd climbed Hydra's ranks faster than a squirrel on espresso. They gave me a fancy title, Madam Hydra, a fancy coat, leather obviously, and a fancy mission, steal a nuclear submarine. I did it. Then I painted Viper was here on the periscope. Hydra wasn't pissed. Worth it. Madam Hydra if you're nasty. Now at 20, I'm one of Hydra's top operatives. I don't just carry out missions, I run them. Assassinations, global manipulations, economic sabotage, you name it, I've probably signed off on it. Some say I'm ruthless. Others say I'm ambitious. Say why not both? But you know what? Even that got boring. Which brings us to now. 1994, I'm 20, baby. Old enough to rent a car, young enough to make terrible life choices. So when I found the book, it felt like fate. Power is addictive, like chocolate or stabbing people who interrupt you mid-sentence. And I wanted more. I didn't want to be one of Hydra core members anymore. I wanted Hydra. I wanted the world. I wanted to have the power that probably no humans or those freaks of mutants would dare to contradict me. Anyway, the book that I was speaking is pretty unique. I found it in Hydra's vault labeled Doom. Cover had a snake eating its own tail, which is either deep symbolism or bad clip art. Everyone else who touched it? Creamed. One guy clawed his eyes out. Another just straight up combusted. I picked it up like it was a purse I found on sale. Not even a tingle. Guess Hydra training has its perks, or I'm destiny. Back in my private lair, yes, I have one. It's got a fireplace, leopard print pillows, and 6 different wine cellars. I started flipping through the book. The language was some unholy cocktail of Latin, ancient Greek, and pure madness, but I understood it. The book was about contracts. Not boring paper ones, soul contracts. You could trade anything, your essence, your memories, your name. In return, power, kernel youth. Knowledge that melts mortal brains. There were many beings that one could contact with, as there were even a list of recommend, but one of them attracted my attention the most, Thon. It was because his name sounds to me like Satan. The book said he was one of the original beings, older than gods, older than time. You couldn't summon him by phone call. You needed a ritual. One that involved a full moon, blood from someone you loved, whoops, and a lot of symbols that probably violated every religious rule ever written. Naturally, I said, let's do this. That night, the moon was perfect. My lair was dimmed to just the right dramatic hue. Candles everywhere, glowing red. A pentagram that took me 3 hours to draw. Look, precision matters, okay? I wore my favorite green outfit. Skin tight, because if I was going to meet a godlike entity, I wasn't doing it in pajamas. Confidence is key. Also heels. Always heels. I stood in the center of the circle, blood dripping from the dagger in my hand. No, I didn't kill someone I loved. I don't love anyone, but hey, Hydra clones are very convincing. And close enough. The book was open in front of me. My voice echoed in the silence as I spoke the words. I call upon the Elder, the sleeping god, the forgotten master of the dark. I offer my soul. I offer my will. I offer everything. I took a deep breath. I invoke. Oh, darling, if I were you, I wouldn't want to do it. I was shocked when a voice appeared whispering to my ears, which interrupted the ritual. I just needed to speak the name of the god I wanted to sign the contract, and everything is over, but alas. Hela's POV. Oh, darling, if I were you, I wouldn't want to do it. When I said that, I swear I felt the girl's soul almost leave her body. Like it did a full 180, said nope, and tried to climb into the astral plane. I'd say it was hilarious if I wasn't the one causing it. Anyway, joke aside, I actually managed to reach Earth. Finally. After God knows how many light years of distance I floated in the many-dimensional drifts, here I am standing, or rather floating on this tiny blue planet that's supposed to be the center of all the trouble in the universe. Earth. Smells different. Feels different. Like something's always brewing. Wars, secrets, gods hiding in shadows, superheroes with drama issues, and of course humans doing stupid shit every 5 minutes. Gotta love it. Right now I'm in New York. City of noise, filth, and weird smells, but also kinda cool in a chaotic sort of way. I grabbed a newspaper off a bench, don't ask how, I have my ways, and saw the date. 1994, huh? Honestly, I expected something more ancient. Not as advanced as it looked. I was picturing horses and swords still, but apparently they've moved on to cable TV, fast food, and something called Friends. Whatever that is. From the original Hela's memories, the last time she set foot on Midgard was, 2,500 years ago? She came with Daddy Dearest Odin and a bunch of Asgardian muscleheads to conquer the place. Back then, she thought Midgard would be a quick job. Easy invasion, burn some temples, slaughter a few tribal kings, get worshipped. Standard Asgardian afternoon. But no. Odin pulled a fast one. Instead of doing what they'd always done, slash and conquer, he went all political. Signed a treaty or something, called it a submission of Earth, and claimed it as his territory without lifting a sword. Hela was not happy about that. She wanted blood, fire, screams. The usual war goddess stuff. And honestly, after digging through her memories, I kinda get it now. Not the whole murder everyone part, but the confusion. Odin always taught her war was the way. Then suddenly he does a 180 and acts like a diplomat? Talk about sending mixed signals. But then again, Earth back then wasn't your typical dirtball planet. It was stacked. The Eternals had just arrived. Egyptian gods were still showing off with pyramids and curses. Atlantis wasn't underwater yet and was still flashing its tech around like it owned the place. Mutants were already popping up, some real freaks like Apocalypse who made Thanos look like a toddler with a glow stick. And don't even get me started on the supernatural side. You could take a walk in the forest and casually run into Thor or Mephisto or some old pantheon dude like Zeus or freaking Amaterasu just chilling in a hot spring somewhere. So yeah, Odin wasn't stupid. He knew going full war mode on Earth was asking for a divine slap across the face. He probably saw the mess and thought, you know what? Let's not. Hela, of course, didn't see it that way. All she saw was betrayal. All those years of training, of war, of father-daughter genocide bonding, tossed aside for some ink on a scroll. So yeah, she had issues. Big ones. But can you blame her? Odin raised her like a weapon, then tried to toss her aside the second she followed orders too well. Anyway, back to the present, or 1994 to be exact. I've been drifting around Earth for about minutes now. I've mostly been observing. TV, radio, newspapers, the occasional random psychic who accidentally tuned into my frequency and thought I was his dead mother, really New York. It's been fun. So, how did I meet Ms. Viper? Good question. I was chilling, happy to be on Earth again, floating over some buildings when I saw something on TV that caught my eye. World Cup. Quarterfinals. Netherlands versus Brazil. California. Oh hell yes. Do you know how long it's been since I saw a good game? From Hela's memories, Asgard doesn't do football. They do bash your head in ball. Very different vibe. So obviously I had to go. I'm literally a few seconds away at most thanks to my lovely astral body. I figured I'd grab the best seat in the stadium. Sidelines or floating above the crowd, mine to choose. But just as I was preparing to teleport over, I felt something. A disturbance. Like someone a few kilometers away was trying to poke a hole into another dimension. Sloppy work, too. Like a toddler trying to break into a liquor cabinet. So naturally I got curious. I followed the source and surprise, surprise, it's Viper. Madame freaking Hydra herself. Trying to summon an eldritch god. with a circle drawn in what I hope is pig's blood and a dagger that looks like it came from a discount demon hunting kit. She was mid-ritual, knife raised, blood about to spill, mumbling some half-baked incantation that sounded like she Googled it off the back of a cereal box. And that's when I dropped in. Quite literally. She froze when I spoke. Like a deer caught in a magical semi-truck. Her eyes snapped to mine, dagger pausing midair. The glow around her circle was shaky. Brand demonic energy at best. Definitely not the premium stuff. Then she did the most adorable and American thing. Pulled a gun. Like I hadn't seen that before, I couldn't help but shudder from the inside thinking about my death. "Who the hell are you?" she spat, gun aimed dead center. Her voice had that perfect mix of anger, confusion, and mild constipation. I almost laughed. "Oh, little girl, if I were you, I wouldn't dare point that thing at a god. Weren't you just trying to summon one?" And only then did she actually see me. Like really saw me. Floating. Glowing slightly. Radiating pure divine power and sass. To her credit, she didn't drop the gun. Hydra agents, man. Gotta respect the training. But her aura? Shaking. She was barely keeping her soul from jumping ship. "You can call me Hela," I added, floating a bit closer just to mess with her head. "Though I'm sure you've heard of me. Or maybe not. You mortals forget fast." I paused, watching her eyes dart around the room like she was trying to figure out how the hell I even got in here. The ritual. Before signing the deal with an eldritch god, she'd opened her perception during the ceremony, allowing her to see and speak with high-level gods, let alone a mere astral body. Poor girl probably expected a writhing tentacle beast or a flaming eyeball or some cliché demon with horns. Not me. A snarky, floating goddess in black. "What?" I teased. "You're ready to sell your soul but can't handle a face-to-face with a real deity?" "Cute." She scowled. "I wasn't expecting." "Exactly," I cut in. "You never are. That's why you people always end up dead, insane, or both." She lowered the gun just a little, though I don't completely understand the reason she did so. "Why are you here?" "Oh, I was on my way to watch the World Cup," I said casually, inspecting her ritual circle like it was a kindergarten drawing. "But then I felt this little tantrum of yours and got curious. Honestly, I expected more from Hydra." Viper bristled at that. "This is classified. You shouldn't even know." "Sweetheart," I interrupted, smiling just a bit. "I know what you had for breakfast. I'm a goddess, one of the strongest goddesses you'll never be able to see. You ever have one of those nights where you're about to make a deal with an ancient, possibly malevolent god, and then someone even scarier crashes the party? No? Just me? Figures. So there I was, dagger in hand, about to seal a deal with an ancient god whose name I could barely pronounce but liked because it feels like Satan, when the universe decided to throw me a curveball. Then, out of nowhere, a voice as smooth as silk and as cold as a Siberian winter whispered in my ear, "Oh, darling, if I were you, I wouldn't want to do it." Cue the internal scream. My soul did a somersault, and for a split second I considered the merits of spontaneous combustion. But, being the resilient orphan-turned-terrorist that I am, I opted for the next best thing, whipping out my trusty Glock and aiming it at the intruder. I saw her. Floating. Glowing. Radiating an aura that screamed, "I can kill you with a thought." Great. Just what I needed, someone that screams, "I'm a psycho." You know, for someone who killed a living being, there's always that kind of aura that allows you to recognize each other, and from the aura of that woman, I had never ever seen someone like that. I'm pretty sure she has killed millions of people out there. "Who the hell are you?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. Spoiler, I failed. She smirked. "Oh, little girl, if I were you, I wouldn't dare point that thing at a god. Weren't you just trying to summon one?" Touché. I lowered the gun. Slightly. "Answer the question." "You can call me Hela," she purred, drifting closer. "Though I'm sure you've heard of me. Or maybe not. You mortals forget fast." Hela, goddess of death, ruler of hell, daughter of Loki, the one who tried to take over Asgard and got her ass handed to her by a giant fiery demon. That Hela? No wonder the aura, she is practically death. What do you want? I asked, cutting to the chase. I'm not sure why she stopped me, but I'm sure that someone like her would never do something without purpose. So yeah, if it came to the worst, I would just finish the ritual and summon that Satan, though I doubt she could kill me before I finished. She tilted her head, eyes gleaming with amusement. I was on my way to watch the World Cup, she said nonchalantly, inspecting my ritual circle like it was a child's doodle. But then I felt this little tantrum of yours and got curious. Honestly, I expected more from Hydra. I was dead shocked by what she said. A god enjoying football? What a good idea. Though what's more shocking is how she seems to know everything about me. Isn't she just some goddess of death? I need to know the limit of her knowledge. This is classified. You shouldn't even know. Sweetheart, she interrupted, smiling just a bit. I know what you had for breakfast. I'm a goddess, one of the strongest you'll never be able to see. Well, crap. I took a deep breath, trying to regain some semblance of control. So, what now? You crash my ritual, throw around some sass, and then what? Kill me. She chuckled. Kill you? No, darling. I'm here to offer you a deal. A deal? With the goddess of death? This day just kept getting better and better, till I was very interested. Seems that I may not leave Earth today. I'm listening, I said cautiously. Hela's eyes sparkled with something between mischief and menace. I find you intriguing, ambitious, reckless. Qualities I admire, and to be honest, you look entertaining. I propose a contract. Your absolute loyalty to me, and in return I grant you power beyond your wildest dreams. I raised an eyebrow. Power, huh? And what exactly does that entail? I was thinking, would she give me some ability to curse people to death? Immortality, she said, her voice like velvet. As long as you're not killed, you'll never age, never wither. I can allow you to gain some strength depending on my mood and how you entertain me. And, of course, knowledge. Secrets of the universe at your fingertips, still depending on my mood. Tempting. Very tempting. To the point I almost accepted the marriage prop, to the point I accepted the proposal. But I'm doubting. Surely there would be some catch, like selling my soul, right? And what do you get out of this? I asked. Your loyalty, she replied simply. You see, I'm really bored recently and need some entertainment. But to be honest, there's nothing you can offer me. If I want a body, I can take it. Your soul is practically nothing to me. Still, I want your loyalty. I don't want someone I nurtured betraying me someday. That would be a little bit bothersome. I looked at her with a face saying, Are you serious? I couldn't help but think of different Greek god stories I have read. Are gods so bored in reality? All right, I said slowly. Course I would accept gladly. I'm willing. Hela's smile widened. We must seal the contract in hell. My domain, of course. Nothing's ever simple. Fine, I agreed. Even if I doubt she may do something to me in her domain, I'm still willing to take the risk. Take me to hell. With pleasure, she blurred and disappeared for about 7 seconds, making me doubt if I was hallucinating. Before I could continue doubting, darkness enveloped me. The world spun, twisted, and then silence. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in a vast, desolate landscape. The sky was a swirling mass of gray and black, and the air was thick with the scent of decay. Welcome to hell. And, no, it's not a mistake. It will be explained why hell is different. Hela stood beside me, her form more imposing than ever. I'm sure she is above 1.90 m in terms of height. Welcome to my humble abode, she said, gesturing grandly. Charming, I muttered. This way, she instructed, leading me toward a massive, ominous-looking palace that loomed in the distance. As we walked, I couldn't help but notice the countless souls wandering aimlessly, their faces full of despair. Lovely place. Inside the palace, the atmosphere was no less grim. Dark corridors, flickering torches, and an overwhelming sense of doom. Homie. We entered a grand hall, at the center of which stood a stone table adorned with ancient runes. But what attracted my attention the most was a throne floating. Let's call it the Void Throne. Hela ascended the steps to her throne and turned to face me. Kneel. I hesitated, pride flaring up. But a quick assessment of my situation reminded me that defiance here would be unwise. I dropped to one knee. Do you, Ophelia Sarkissian, known as Viper, swear your undying loyalty to me, Hela, goddess of death and ruler of hell? Her voice was like a blade, sharp and commanding. I do, I said, the words tasting foreign on my tongue. She extended her hand, and a green flame flickered to life in her palm. Then drink. I looked at the flame, then back at her. Seriously? Seriously, she confirmed. Suppressing a sigh, I leaned forward and inhaled the flame. Burned down my throat, searing and cold all at once. Power surged through me and I gasped, feeling my body change, strengthen. Rise, Hela commanded. I stood feeling different, stronger, the more alive than I'd ever felt. You are now bound to me, Hela said, satisfaction in her tone. Immortal unless slain. And as a token of my favor. She waved her hand and a vial appeared, floating toward me. I caught it. The blue-colored liquid inside looked so ominous. The Super Soldier Serum, like you humans call it, she explained. I see that your Hydra is very interested in it. This is something I got a while ago from a ruined timeline. You can take it as my gift, but note you aren't allowed to study or give it. Either you take it or I take my thing back. I smirked, tucking the vial away. I bet, unless my head is kicked by a donkey, I would definitely take it as soon as I return to Earth. And just like that, I became the right hand of the goddess of death. From orphan to Hydra agent to immortal servant of a deity. Life's funny like that. But hey, if you're going to sell your soul, might as well sell it to the highest bidder. So there I was, fresh off signing a soul contract with an international terrorist in my literal hellscape house, freshly decorated to welcome her. Through all, I needed to show my majesty and all, although almost everything I showed her was pure illusion. Something I have to say, and the reason I have hope that mutants exist is because this universe has a bit of the comics element in it. I'm one of the Hell Lords alongside Mephisto, Satanish, Pluto, Blackheart, and some others who rule various underworlds. We sometimes war or make peace with one another. Although I can't leave due to Odin and Kamartaj's tight projection barrier, I can at least invite souls and humans who are willing to come. Unfortunately, since being sealed by Odin, the original Hela never received a soul from Earth. Apparently, that group of greedy bastards wouldn't send her share. I would definitely conquer all the other hell dimensions and wouldn't share with anyone. But well, before that, I think I should first project my vision onto hell. Why settle for ruling over a gloomy underworld when I could reshape it? Create a kingdom that reflects my desires, my vision. A new pantheon, perhaps? The thought is tantalizing. But first, a proper visit to Earth is in order. My initial trip had been brief, and I hadn't had the chance to truly experience the modern mortal world. And who better to accompany me than my newly acquired mortal associate Viper? Viper, sorry Ophelia, was still staring at her new Super Soldier Serum vial like it was a golden ticket to Willy Wonka's murder factory. I snapped my fingers in front of her face. Earth to murder Barbie. We've got places to be. She blinked. What? The World Cup? Netherlands versus Brazil? The entire reason I paused my Astral sightseeing tour to adopt you? I floated around her, inspecting her Hydra chic leather jumpsuit. Unfortunately, it wasn't the original green suit Viper wears in most of the comics, so... First order of business, we're upgrading your wardrobe. You look like a rejected Matrix extra. She crossed her arms. I'm not here to be your dress-up doll. Oh, honey, you're here because I said so. But well, there are more pressing matters. I guess we'll do the style makeover later. I grabbed her shoulder before she could ask any more questions and yanked us both through the astral plane. Ha! The little girl dares to defy me now? Anyway, it was definitely not to admire her shape. I'm not some horny goddess who hasn't seen a female body in 365 days or hasn't had sex in her 5,000 plus years of existence and barely manages to control herself. Anyway, after I pulled the same move the Ancient One used on Strange, Ophelia was now in her astral form. I didn't waste time and directly dragged her deep into the astral plane to return to Earth quickly. Poor girl, she was about to experience something her soul can't naturally support. But with my protection, there shouldn't be any big problems. We popped out mid-air above the Rose Bowl Stadium. 94,000 screaming fans below, the smell of overpriced nachos and existential dread wafting up. Viper floated beside me, though she was, well, unconscious. I sighed and snapped my fingers again, stabilizing her essence before her astral body unraveled like cheap ribbon. I didn't realize it before, since I had no one to interact with, but it seems Hela's memories and emotions affected me more than I thought. I really just thought, mortals. One taste of the dimensional tour and they faint. Dramatic. This is definitely not what the original Earthling me would have thought. Viper stirred beside me, groaning as she blinked her spectral eyes open, which thankfully stopped my overthinking. Where did I die? I chuckled at her. Really funny. This is exactly the reason I wanted to leave hell in the first place, even though I was an introvert. Well, more like an extrovert forced by the world to become an introvert. I didn't like meeting people because you could feel their hypocrisy from miles away. Anyway, in our astral bodies, no one could see us. Unfortunately, I'm not yet able to use my powers in this form, or I'd have found a way to eat some popcorn while watching the game. I ignored Viper, who was still confused, and began thinking seriously about my plans. First of all, I need to recruit subordinates. And when I say subordinates, I don't mean brainwashed people or those under mind control. To be honest, whether as Hela or as myself, I find that repulsive. That's why I requested Viper's loyalty. I don't want to do anything that could alter her mind, her way of thinking, or her soul to make her completely devoted to me. If I did, she'd feel more like a tool than a living being to me. Then I need to consider whether to simply become the heir of Asgard or to create my own pantheon. That depends on one question I need to ask Odin. His answer will determine everything. Even then, I need to recruit people because I want to expand my dimension and conquer Asgard as well. It's my home ground. Even if I create a new pantheon, I can't sacrifice my bonus. After all, being the rightful heir to Asgard comes with perks. Divine right, ancient artifacts, some nifty bloodline buffs, the usual royal cheat codes. Besides, the thought of wiping that smug look off Thor's face? Delicious. Ophelia finally stabilized beside me, her astral self floating a little shakily, like a drunk ghost on stilts. You didn't answer me, she grumbled. Am I dead? No. But I am losing patience, and that's far more dangerous. I flicked her forehead with a finger laced in divine will, and she jerked upright, her form shimmering back into full coherence. She scowled, rubbing her brow. You're enjoying this too much. Obviously, I said with a smirk. Now hush. Watch. Brazil scored again. Crowd surged. Unfortunately, my face was gloomy, not because I was a Netherlands supporter, but because of something more serious. I wasn't enjoying the game. I found it boring. Something I couldn't believe. I'm watching the game while floating just above the goalposts with the best view, a crowd cheering, a good match with everything you'd need. But nonetheless, I found it boring. Took me a moment to realize why. It wasn't the game, it was me. Once upon a time, when I still thought my name was, I would have screamed for a miracle header or cursed a missed penalty like the rest of the mortals below. Now the thrill was gone. I could see the trajectory of the ball before it curved, feel the ripple in the crowd's emotions before they erupted. I had ascended, quite literally, past the point of caring. It was a very bad discovery. Before, when I was in hell, this was literally what I craved. Now that it's in front of me, I find it boring. Why? Because no matter what, I have 5,000 plus years worth of experience. I'm no longer the mortal me who could enjoy human entertainment. I'm now a god. How could you enjoy something when you could already predict the results? When the people involved are so far below you in life essence, intelligence, and power? She blinked. No. Mostly because I send other people to climb the mountain and shoot anyone waiting at the top. I gave her a side eye. Of course you do. Very on brand. But her words stuck with me. Maybe I was thinking about this all wrong. I didn't need a mortal thrill. I needed purpose. The original Hela's purpose was to leave this god-forsaken place, take her revenge on Odin, reclaim Asgard, and conquer the worlds. For that, she was willing to endure everything, even the long, lonely centuries. Although I share her memories and emotions, we aren't the same. The simple fact that I need to talk to Odin before making up my mind already proves that. But then, what is my goal? 5 days have passed since I left Hell and came to Earth. 5 days since I noticed the strangeness and the change that happened to my mentality. After all, I now have a strong soul and more life experience than any human on Earth. I didn't spend the past 5 days sulking. I recovered from the discovery the same day. Especially since I haven't lost all the joy of seeing other forms of entertainment. Another head hangs lowly, child is slowly taken. Musical notes, musical notes, musical notes. That's right, when I crossed out this song from my past life by accident, I felt some of my emotions and even started to miss songs from my past life. Unfortunately, I would most likely not hear most of them. Why? 'Cause it's the Marvel world. From the information I collected, the world still hasn't entered the heroes and villains phase. The only villains are the dead Red Skull and the international terrorist Magneto. That's right, thanks to the old man's presence, it became apparent that mutants exist in this world. It's just that the world is now in the calm before the storm period. You can see on TV that Tony Stark is about to demonstrate his weapons, a certain group of people is about to go to space for a picnic, a certain African tribe prince studying in New York is becoming popular, etc. Zombie, the DJ's voice intoned after the song concluded. The latest from the Cranberries, climbing the charts faster than my ex ran from commitment. The little joke of the DJ made me forget about everything that is coming. Anyway, I'm already strong enough to protect myself in the early stages. I just need to keep evolving as I know the comic book threats will only become stronger. After the song ended, I didn't continue listening. Anyway, most 90s songs aren't to my taste. I prefer electronic and hardstyle music. I directly traversed through the different walls until I came down to the hidden basement where even if a nuclear bomb were to explode, you might not know it. Here, I found Ophelia training, adapting herself to the Super Soldier Serum. She now looks more toned and is almost reaching my height, clearly having optimized her body. The change, though, wasn't as big as Steve's since she was originally a well-trained assassin with a well-proportioned body, almost reaching the peak of humanity. I couldn't help but admire her. Most superheroes just obtain powers by accident, save someone by accident, and become heroes. They generally don't train or develop their abilities unless a villain stronger than them appears. Only then would they seek change. Thanks to them being main characters, they would manage to escape unscathed. Villains, on the other hand, are almost never complacent when it comes to obtaining more powers. They always want to become stronger and never let any opportunity pass. If a superhero obtains the Super Soldier Serum, he would be like, "Oh, that's cool. Let's go save people." The villains, however, would be more like, "Oh, I need to adapt to my new power and obtain more powers to dominate the world." This doesn't include second-rate villains, of course, who, just by obtaining something, think they are the strongest in the world. Now, what is bothering me is how to classify this world. Mutants exist, so there's no question about it being the MCU. But even so, Tony Stark's face was that of Robert Downey Jr., and the same for Captain America with Chris Evans's face. Some events are according to the comics, while others are like in the MCU. So yeah, all my advantage of knowing the future is almost non-existent. Now, I'm even more confused since some things aren't like in the movie. What if the Allfather didn't take the express elevator to Valhalla? Does that mean my body would have to continue sleeping in hell? Just this thought is enough to make me shudder. No, I can't let my future depend on whether Odin dies or not. One must know that in the comics, the Allfather has died multiple times, but it was never permanent. He's been killed in battles, gone into the Odin sleep, basically divine hibernation, and has even faked his death. One of his most iconic deaths was during Ragnarok, but even then, he kind of returned later in some form. He's fought beings like Surtur, Mangog, and infinity-level threats, and actually put up a serious fight. Even when he dies, it's often in some epic multi-issue war against cosmic threats, and usually involves Asgard being destroyed again. So yeah, I really need to become stronger for my freedom and everything that is about to come. Naturally, the most direct and easiest way to do this is by following one of my lovers in another parallel universe and collecting the Infinity Stones. Knowing the future and their possible locations, it would be easier for me than for him. But since I can't do it myself, I should guide my team to do the task for me, or at least free me. For this, I need stronger people, and now I only have Viper. Current her is also not strong enough. I thought about the information I learned in the past few days, and one thing that could make her stronger. I couldn't help but smirk thinking of a way for her to gain superpowers. Honey, I think you have adapted to your current body's changes. It's time for high power. Ah, teasing the women again. Even now, she fell for it as I can hear her heart beating. Still, it's better than last time when her heart almost left her body. I can understand her. Train not to be surprised, even a little bit of sound can tell her someone's near, but me floating, she never knows where I am, so yeah, it's normal for her to be caught off guard. When she realized what had happened and looked at me, I could see some annoyance on her face, but well, I guess the illusions I made her see in hell weren't for nothing. She hid that annoyance well and spoke more respectfully and curiously, which made me give her a thumb silently. My goddess, you caught me off guard again. I don't know if she was quickly accepting her role as inferior to someone or if she's used to it since Hydra always had someone above her, but I didn't hear disgust when she spoke. I was even more pleased with this. Seems that my choice was the right one. I gave her a smirk, my voice low and confident. Let's just say you're going to get a power boost. Something that'll put you on a whole new level. Let's just say you're about to get a power boost that'll catapult you into a whole new league. Her eyes sparkled with excitement, the earlier tension vanishing like a bad dream. Ha! Truly a pragmatic woman. Hold your horses, sunshine. The method I'm offering is straightforward, but there's a catch. Either your body adapts to the mutation or you die. Her enthusiasm dimmed slightly, but she didn't seem deterred. Having navigated this world's underbelly, she knew that power always came with risks, 99% of the time at least. Let me paint you a picture, I said, drawing her attention. This is how 4 ordinary folks, a scientist, his fiancé, her kid brother, and a pilot, became something extraordinary. They called themselves the Fantastic Four. But before that, they were just reckless. Brilliant? Sure. Brave? Perhaps. But mostly arrogant. Their leader, a man obsessed with cosmic rays, detected an impending cosmic storm, a once-in-a-lifetime event. I paused, giving her a moment to process. Thanks to her Hydra connections, she had briefed me on figures like Reed Richards and Tony Stark to help me grasp this universe's landscape. She caught on quickly. You mean Reed Richards, Susan Storm, Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm, the ones you had me investigate earlier? According to the investigation results, Reed Richards is currently very interested in cosmic rays and the cosmic storm he detected. I smirked. Exactly. Glad to see you're more than just a pretty face. She rolled her eyes but didn't argue. So they got zapped by a cosmic storm and voila, superpowers. Are you suggesting I take a trip to space? Despite her nonchalant demeanor, I could sense her excitement. After all, who wouldn't be thrilled at the prospect of gaining powers? Especially someone like her, always on the hunt for an edge. I chuckled. Not everyone can stumble into power so easily. Reed Richards, the nerdy guy, gained super elasticity and enhanced intelligence, enabling him to create things like time machines and interdimensional portals. Susan Storm acquired invisibility and the ability to generate powerful force fields, capable of holding off heavyweights like my little brother Thor and the Hulk, both of whom can lift over 100 tons without breaking a sweat. Johnny Storm, with his pyrokinesis, could incinerate alien fleets that were millennia ahead of human technology. And then there's Ben Grimm. Superhuman strength, durability, and endurance. Sure, he ended up with a rocky exterior, but he once held up a collapsing mountain range estimated to weigh about 150 billion tons. She seemed to forget to breathe for a moment, her heart skipping a beat before she regained her composure. Are you serious? A human holding up 150 billion tons? Another wiping out alien fleets? And you're telling me such people exist on Earth? That will be attacked by aliens? That time travel and dimensional portals are real? Are we still talking about our world? Oops. Maybe I let slip more than intended. But, yeah, trust me, Earth is more dangerous than you can imagine. The number of times this planet will be destroyed and saved is more than a toddler can count. But don't worry. With me, you'll have the power to survive. And if you manage to prove your loyalty, I can help you gain abilities that make Earth look like an egg you can crush at will. Of course, when I say Earth, I mean the mundane version she knows without any of the Marvel Universe's protections. In fact, I know there's a risk in making her go to space with the Fantastic Four, but at least it's not a big risk. Sure, if it were the Ultimate Universe, Earth 1610, where the Fantastic Four got their power after being exposed to the End Zone, I might consider it since the End Zone really did have some risk. But in almost all the universes where they were hit by the cosmic rays, they gained their powers. Although there are many theories linking their power like the 4-in-1 entity, as I recall many people did gain power under the same circumstances of being hit by cosmic rays like Victor Von Doom, the UFOs, Red Ghost, and the Super Apes, so it does seem very likely. Still, I didn't want to put her at risk. I should explain everything to her and let her make her own choice. Look at me, girl, what I'm about to tell you is the secret concerning our universe, one that many would destroy your planet to know. Let's put it this way, our current universe is just one tiny speck among many others. Universes, or parallel worlds as you may call them, and I have an ability that allows me to know what happened in these worlds. So technically, although I don't know the future because it's always changing according to my choice, I do know that in nearly every universe where the Four encounter that cosmic storm, they gain powers. The odds are in your favor, but that doesn't mean it's safe. Well, I told her that I know the future before, but doing things like asking her to investigate and collect info or even something later would eventually make her doubt me. Rather than coming up with an excuse later, it's better I explain before it happens. She exhaled sharply, running a hand through her hair. That's insane. And terrifying. Then, after a beat, a smirk tugged at her lips. Also incredibly exciting. Huh, thrill seeker? Exciting. I arched a brow, amused. Most people would be questioning their sanity right about now. She shrugged, her smirk widening. Most people don't survive the Red Room, let alone claw their way up Hydra's ranks. Insanity is just another Tuesday. I smiled. All right, it seems that you've already made up your mind, then I don't need to tell you what to do, right? The Fantastic Four in this universe are working at the Baxter Foundation, a government-sponsored research institute for young prodigies. With Viper's connection and Hydra's infiltration in the government, it's too easy for her to enter. Of course, she said, smirking with full confidence. I'll get myself on that mission. If others can gain power, I definitely can. I would do anything to gain power. Well, the villainesses are thought to be dangerous, but by anything does that also include betraying me? Till it's time to meet my true interest. Coming across Viper was an accident. I'm more inclined toward the Yandere Wanda and the hot Jean. Unfortunately, according to the investigation done by Viper, Wanda is in one of Hydra's bases, a newly recruited child who hasn't yet awakened her powers. This lets me set my objective to the other one who can see me, Jean. Honestly, I'm more interested in her dark phoenix personality. She's too hot, huh? Good, I said, watching Viper's confident gaze. Then I'll leave the details to you. But don't forget, sweetie, power is only as useful as the hand that wields it. And I always collect on my investments. She must never get the idea of betraying me. I hate traitors the most in my life. Salem Center, New York, Xavier Mansion. In New York, apart from landmarks like Stark Tower, the Daily Bugle Building, Oscorp Tower, and many other popular buildings, there's a mansion said to be more worth visiting than them all. This mansion is very well known in New York as an old antique worth seeing. It is rumored that the current owner inherited the mansion, which has been passed down through his family for 10 generations. Currently, the mansion is undergoing renovations. The owner of the mansion, Charles Xavier, one of the brightest men in humanity, has expressed his desire to open a school where he would teach special gifted students. It is even said that the old man has already recruited 5 students, though others cannot confirm whether this is true. What can be determined is that, in this huge mansion apart from Charles Xavier, there is a young girl he has adopted since she was 11. Rumor has it that the girl's name is Jean Grey. A quiet, red-haired teenager who rarely steps beyond the mansion's tall gates. Locals in Salem Center have spotted her only a few times, once at the bookstore downtown and once near the lake, but those who did say there's something strange about her. Not frightening, but different. As if the air around her gets a little heavier, the silence a little deeper when she passes by. Some whisper she's the real reason behind the sudden renovations. Others think Xavier is preparing the place not for a simple school, but for something far more ambitious. The young girl that people have been talking about is here today, reading books as usual with her glasses. Once 11, now already 18, Jean Grey couldn't help but sigh. Normally, she would be at the stage of enjoying life, transforming into a woman and adult, starting to understand her responsibilities. But unfortunately, she isn't normal. At age 10, her mutant abilities awakened traumatically when her best friend, Annie Richardson, was struck by a car. Jean psychically linked with Annie, experiencing her death firsthand. Since then, Jean has been naturally withdrawn. Whether she likes it or not, she can hear other people's thoughts as if they were speaking to her. Not only that, sometimes when emotions run too high around her, Jean can feel them, raw, without any filter. Emotions crash into her like the car that struck her friend. Anger, fear, jealousy, lust, it was overwhelming. The world never shut up, and for years she barely held herself together. To be honest, she's had enough. She only wanted to shut off her power and live like a normal human, but unfortunately, it's impossible. Still, she has something to look forward to now because the mansion is no longer just the two of them. Charles has recruited 4 other people and created a group called the X-Men, of which she is a part. Their mission is to save and guide young mutants who have awakened their powers. Charles even decided to create a school for them. Finally, life would no longer be so boring with a routine where she knew everything she would do tomorrow. There would finally be some unpredictability. Just when Jean was lost in her thoughts, she heard a voice coming from nowhere. "Wow, little one, you look so lonely." It was a woman's voice. From Jean's knowledge, she is the only woman in this mansion, so how did someone even manage to come near her without her hearing their thoughts? This left her a little panicked. She turned around but found no one. Phew, am I starting to lose my mind now? No, the voice replied to her self-question. I'm above you, darling. Well, Hela found that instead of Loki, she should be called the trickster goddess because she really enjoys pranking, trolling, and teasing people now, especially women who appear so cute. Jean, who heard the reply, naturally raised her head. She saw a woman floating. Oh my God. Although the young woman had been in contact with the supernatural world since her youth, she never imagined coming into contact with something like a ghost. She still couldn't help but doubt if she was hallucinating. As for Hela, after seriously examining Jean, she confirmed that the latter hadn't yet become the avatar of the Phoenix Force. Jean has strong psychic abilities which allowed her to see Hela's astral form, but even then, Jean's power was mostly suppressed. That's also good. I can at least come in contact with her before the Phoenix Force thing. Though, does this mean she would come into contact with the Phoenix Force in the comic way? Hela tilted her head. An amused and excited smile appeared on her lips as she slowly floated down from the ceiling, her green eyes directly locking with Jean's. "You're not hallucinating, sweetie," she said in a teasing sing-song voice. "But I'll admit, the expression on your face is priceless." Jean was really scared. Not in the Viper way where she may have felt fear but was ready to lose her life, but in a way that every normal human fears death. She didn't have much experience with fighting or anything like that. Right now, the X-Men had just been formed, and the only conflict she had participated in was against Magneto. Even then, it was a small conflict. As she could feel people's emotions, she didn't sense any malice from this woman. But then again, since she couldn't hear the latter's thoughts, maybe her powers weren't working? What caused her to feel fear was Hela's eyes. Even if her powers weren't working, Jean was a truly professional psychologist at 20. She could see indifference, boredom, and many psychopath qualities on Hela's face, and this, to be honest, scared her. What are you?" Jean managed, her voice barely above a whisper. In fact, while she was speaking, she was instinctively sending signals to Charles through telepathy. She needed to buy some time. Without a doubt, Hela isn't a telepath. Till once one reaches a certain level, things like space movements, soul fluctuations, psychic fluctuations, magic fluctuations, and the like can be felt, especially in this form. Hela found out that her psychic and soul perception was even greater than usual. "Clever girl," she mused aloud, her voice laced with approval. "Calling for Daddy Xavier. I'd do the same if I were in your position, encountering a strange person. Unfortunately, I wouldn't recommend you do so. With his little psychic powers, he may feel me, but I think it's hard for him to see me, let alone hurt me." She knows? Jean asked herself. Clearly, this woman seems like someone dangerous and strong. What if she harms Charles? Jean regretted asking for help, but it was already too late. She could feel Charles was about 1 minute away. Even if she told him it was nothing, he would definitely come to verify to be sure. Fortunately, Hela decided to stop teasing Jean. No matter what, too much teasing might lead to resentment and misunderstanding. She repeated almost the same thing she had said to Viper. "Don't look so terrified, darling. I'm not a bad person. If I wanted to hurt you, you'd already be dead." Till no response. Are my powers not working on her? Jean still couldn't feel any feedback about whether the woman was lying or not. She asked a question that she doubted would receive an answer, but if she could, it might change something. "Who are you?" "Who am I?" Hela thought of a certain someone's introduction. Although it might appear cringeworthy for readers in her past life, now she felt it would be cool. "I'm a ghost, the ghost of Asgard, Hela, Queen of Asgard." Hela. Asgard. Jean Grey had read almost every book humanity had managed to scribble down since they learned how to hold a quill. Myths, legends, obscure religious texts, conspiracy theories, and even the occasional cheesy alien romance. Jean consumed them all. It was no surprise, then, that she was intimately familiar with the name Hela. And by intimately familiar, she meant creepily so, like that one weird phase essay when she tried to prove Norse gods were actually early mutants just to give mutant kind better PR, see? Look, Thor was just a really buff weather manipulator with daddy issues. It didn't catch on. Till Hela. Goddess of death. Daughter of Loki and Angerboda. Sister to Fenrir the oversized doggo and Jormungandr, the world's least cuddly noodle. Mythology had painted her as half-dead, half-alive, which Jean figured was just another poetic way of saying, looks like a corpse, talks like a goth. Yet here she was in Jean's mind, looking very much alive, very much not half-rotting, and, most annoyingly, very much not explained by any book she'd ever read. Also, apparently, the Queen of Asgard now? Since when did the underworld branch out into franchising? But those questions could wait, because the one gnawing at Jean's brain like a caffeinated squirrel was, why is the goddess of death looking for me? Am I dying? Did I forget to pay a cosmic tax or something? Hela, for her part, remained blissfully unaware of the soap opera unfolding in Jean's overactive mind. If she had known, she might have been grateful Jean didn't have access to the Phoenix Force yet. No one liked dealing with telekinetic meltdowns over misunderstood metaphors. Outside the chaos of Jean's skull, Charles Xavier stood beneath the morning sun with all the serenity of a man trying very hard not to punch the government in the throat. Again, he'd been thinking about the future. And mutants. And the future of mutants. Which, right now, looked about as bright as a candle in a hurricane. Once upon a time, before bureaucracy and bad decisions got involved, he and Magneto, along with Mystique and a few other idealists, had tried to make a difference. A small group, a big dream. It lasted until the government poked its ugly nose in and stomped the dream flat like a toddler discovering ants. Eric had left, of course. Declared war. Started his own thing. Mutant freedom, mutant pride, mutant terrorism, depending on your favorite news outlet. Charles didn't exactly blame him, but he also didn't want to spend his life ducking missiles. Now, most humans, who'd never met a mutant outside of their nightly news nightmare reel, hated them. Charles liked to think it was all propaganda. Maybe 99% of it. Maybe. He'd made up his mind after saving a kid named Scott from the FBI's idea of hospitality. It was time. A school. A place to teach, protect, and maybe rehabilitate mutant image before someone decided to drop a nuke just to be safe. The X-Men. That was the dream. A superhero team that could win hearts and minds, maybe even snag a Time magazine cover that didn't involve fire or handcuffs. His noble brainstorming session came to a screeching halt the moment Jean's distress call hit his mind like a psychic slap to the face. Jean Grey. The most unique mutant he'd ever met, and the most terrifying if he was being honest with himself during therapy. Charles didn't hesitate. He'd learned long ago that hesitation was the luxury of people without telepathic senses tingling like they just walked into a minefield made of cosmic nonsense. Even though he couldn't feel anyone directly near Jean, something was off. Her mental signature, usually steady like a quiet lake, had started rippling like someone had just tossed in a very large dose of panic. In a world where he saw people teleporting, phasing through walls, controlling one of the most fundamental forces of the universe, and occasionally exploding because they sneezed wrong, Charles had learned not to trust appearances. Scott, he called, seeing the boy lounging under a tree like this was some peaceful campus romance film. Come with me. Something may be happening to Jean. Scott's entire posture snapped straight, and his face went from chill student to armed soldier with a personal stake in under a second. Charles didn't say anything, though the internal commentary was definitely there. Ah, yes. Teenage crush mode activated. Alert the hormones. He was going to have to keep an eye on that one. Jean needed support, not a lovesick laser cannon hovering at her elbow, definitely not because he had some intentions. Still, this wasn't the time for awkward mentor jealousy or a birds and bees mutant edition talk. As they hurried through the halls of the mansion, Charles reached out telepathically. Hank. Something's wrong with Jean. I'm heading to the library with Scott. Join us immediately, just in case this turns into one of those days. Fortunately, Hank was in his lab. Bobby and Warren were out, likely doing something loud and expensive. But right now, Charles didn't care about who was absent. He cared more about Jean. She was the future of all mutants. By the time the message reached Hank, they were nearly at the library. Scott, of course, had rushed ahead without so much as a plan or pause to think. Not exactly the future leader of the X-Men Charles had envisioned. No strategy. No caution. Just teenage boy energy and a crush driving his legs faster than his brain. He's eager, at least, Charles thought, mildly disappointed. Though I was hoping for brilliant tactician, not romantic golden retriever. They burst into the library. And stopped. There was no one there. Well, no one visible. Jean stood alone in the center of the room, her eyes wide, her lips moving as if she were in mid-conversation. Except she was talking to air. Or maybe a ghost. Or maybe Charles was about to have to deal with another possession and it wasn't even noon. Scott blinked, looking as if someone had just drop-kicked his expectations. Charles frowned. He expanded his mind carefully, peeling back the layers of the room with practiced precision. And there it was. Faint. Cold. Dark. A psychic presence like frost on glass, right where Jean's gaze was locked. He couldn't see it with his eyes, but with his mind he could more or less feel something. Someone or something was standing there. And of course, Charles thought with a sigh, it had to be Jean. 'Cause she always had those things, as if the universe wanted her life to be something extraordinary. Jean's breath slowed down the moment the doors crashed open behind her. Not from fear, at least that's what she told herself, but from that sickening sense of inevitability. She didn't need to turn, knowing it must be Charles. Although she regretted sending the message as it might endanger him, regret was for people with time. And right now, she'd spend every second she had protecting the man who had been more of a father to her than the one who let her go, although she knew he had his reasons. Across the room, the woman who had made Death look overdressed was like a cat watching mice pretend they had a chance. A man with no legs and a walking flashlight, Hela said with a grin sharp enough to cut through steel. I'm trembling. Jean felt the sarcasm claw under her skin, but Hela's expression didn't shift. She was too calm. Unbothered. Like someone watching a low-budget horror movie, waiting for the jump scare that never came. Jean inhaled deeply, steadying her nerves. No use flinching before the blade fell. You said your name is Hela. Are you really the goddess of the underworld from Norse mythology? And what do you want from me? The smile faltered. Hela's brow creased just slightly, but Jean noticed. She couldn't tell what she'd said wrong, but apparently she'd committed some sort of faux pas. You know, Hela began, her voice as dry as a bone in a desert, what you just did. That's what we call improper address. Jean blinked. I introduced myself as Hela, Queen of Asgard, and you demote me to some underworld desk job from a half-remembered mythology book. It's rude. Like calling a queen a janitor because they both hold keys. The silence stretched. Then Hela sighed like a teacher tired of explaining basic algebra to toddlers. Still, as the most benevolent ruler in the 9 realms, I'll forgive you. Ignorance is expected when you're scared. Jean clenched her fists. She didn't feel scared. She felt insulted. I'll be honest, little phoenix, Hela continued, her voice slipping into something softer, more sinister. I didn't come to harm you. You're particular. Special. A lovely little anomaly in a boring, broken world. Jean's blood turned cold. You'll understand it later. Or not. Either way, I'm curious, Hela said, flashing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I've grown bored lately, and your future? Well, let's just say it might be the only entertaining thing left. Looking at the real Jean Grey standing in front of me? Honestly, it's refreshing. Unfortunately, she's not my preferred edition. You know, the spicy, unhinged, cosmic-level psychopath version, Dark Phoenix. God, I love that one. Yeah, she's technically a villainess, but I've always had a soft spot for characters who'd burn the world for someone they love. Aaron Wanda, that sort of beautifully deranged energy. What I can't stand are martyr types like Itachi. Oh no, I must kill everyone who loves me for peace. Boo-hoo. Cry me a river, then drown in it. If you want peace, knit a sweater, don't slaughter your clan. I guess that young, edgy, chaos-loving part of me is still alive and kicking, or at least twitching violently. Dark Phoenix? She's all passion and apocalypse. This Jean? She flip-flops between Logan, Scott, and Charles like she's hosting The Bachelor Mutant Edition. I mean, pick a guy or don't, but don't pretend you're emotionally stable while juggling 3 men and 1 world-ending telepathic crisis. Still, I'm not judging her for what she hasn't done. I'm just here for the entertainment. And believe me, being near the X-Men is never boring. It's either world-ending missions or Monday morning Sentinel attacks. Who needs more spice when you have mutant drama? Wanda? She's off limits for now, too young, and currently Hydra's favorite lab rat under Baron Strucker. I'll free her once Viper takes full control. As for Natasha, sigh. That one interests me, but sadly she can't see me. No fun stalking someone who doesn't know you exist. So, I guess I'll hang around Jean until the Ancient One gets bored enough to invite me over for spiritual tea and passive-aggressive riddles. You know the type. She says one thing means 12 others and somehow convinces you it was your fault for not being enlightened enough to decode her metaphysical crossword puzzle. Anyway, back to Jean. She was still glaring at me like I'd stolen her diary or something. Honestly, it was getting annoying. Look, girl, I said with a dramatic sigh. I get it, you've got trust issues, but could you stop being annoying? And tell your friendly floating professor to stop trying to track me down. No legs or not, he's not qualified to see me. Maybe after a few more therapy sessions. Her face crumpled like a poorly written redemption arc. Guess she didn't like being called annoying. Which is ironic, considering she spent the last few minutes giving me the "are you a ghost" or my inner PTSD stare. And just as she opened her mouth to snap back, the dramatic tension was sliced clean by Charles's voice floating in. Jean, are you all right? Classic timing, Charles. It's like he has a sixth sense for barging in right when you're about to drop some verbal fire. Charles, the good, bald old man, comes in many flavors across the multiverse. In some worlds, he's everyone's favorite wise and gentle grandfather figure. In others, he's the kind of smooth-talking, chess-playing puppet master who'd sell his own soul for a checkmate then blame Magneto for it. But one thing remains constant. That shiny dome could reflect sunlight strong enough to blind satellites. NASA's probably mistaken him for a small moon at least twice by now. Now, as for me, I'm in my astral form, lounging invisibly like some sarcastic poltergeist. Normally, this state lets me read emotions like an open book, all fluttering pages and raw feelings. As I've remarked in the past few days, it's like walking through a library of inner turmoil. But Charles? Oh no. He's a different breed. Thanks to those psychic powers of his, he's managed to block his emotions entirely. That's something only top-tier beings can pull off. I don't know if he did it on purpose or if it's just Charles being Charles. Either way, I'm annoyed. Jean, on the other hand, trusts him like a duckling trusts its mother. Sweet, loyal, and completely blind. I'm fine, Professor, she said, her voice a little too firm, like she was trying to convince herself. There's a woman in front of me. Can't you see her? TSK. Classic case of believe the bald guy over the dead chick. Definitely not the first time that's happened. I can't see anyone, Charles said, his voice calm and diplomatic. Though I do sense a presence. Who are you speaking with? Yeah, the psychic telepath connection between the two is touching. Really. Heartwarming. Meanwhile, Cyclops, aka Scott Summers, aka Mr. Flash Eyes, was being completely ignored, and for a brief second I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Then I remembered he breathes arrogance and eats insecurity for breakfast, probably while checking his reflection in every available surface. You know the type. I have a tortured past, therefore I get to be an ass. Jean didn't answer Charles immediately. Instead, she turned toward me and I met her gaze. We locked eyes, what some people dramatically call a four eyes moment, though mine were probably glowing green and hers were filled with the confusion of someone trying not to scream. Professor, she finally said, still staring at me, there's a woman in front of me. She says her name is Hela, Queen of Asgard. Ah yes. That title. You could practically hear the capital letters in her voice. Queen of Asgard. A part of me cringed. Another part of me straightened her back and mentally adjusted her imaginary crown. It's not like I want to brag, but come on, I know what the myths say. That I'm Loki's daughter, born from his weird union with something. I don't know. A snake? A concept? A goat with daddy issues? Whatever it wasn't true. The real story was simpler. I was Odin's firstborn. The original war machine. By the time Loki even existed, I'd already finished conquering realms and being locked in magical closets. I could have explained it all, laid out the real story like some historical PowerPoint, but explaining all that to Jean would be exhausting. And really, why waste energy convincing someone who would probably think Thor's hammer is powered by worthiness and not political favoritism? That would take way too long. And honestly, I kind of enjoyed the confusion. Let them squirm a little. Builds character. Hela? Queen of Asgard? Charles muttered, his tone more "what the hell did I wake up to" than skeptical. He looked like a man silently praying this was all a psychic-induced dream and not another Tuesday-level crisis. Jean stayed serious, though, bless her brave little telepathic heart. Yeah. She's right here. Floating. She can hear and see us. Just don't say anything disrespectful just in case. Pragmatic. I like that in a girl. You could see it in Charles, too. The old man was already calculating the odds and probably deciding that treating the supposed Queen of Asgard with a bit of courtesy might be worth the potential of not being turned into hell. And then, as always, Scott had to open his mouth and ruin the moment. Humph, he snorted, arms crossed like a high school quarterback who just found out the new kid is hotter than him. What Hela? What Norse mythology? It's clearly some mutant messing with us. Scott. Walking cautionary tale. Darwinism had a greatest hits album, you'd be track number 1, titled How to Die First in a Horror Movie. Honestly, if I weren't in astral form, I'd love to demonstrate why mocking death in front of death is universally considered a bad life choice. I mean, come on, rule number 1 of survival, no matter the religion, myth, or haunted cabin in the woods, don't sass the Grim Reaper. But Scott just had to go full atheist in front of a literal divine entity. Guy has the emotional intelligence of a brick and the survival instinct of a lemming at a cliffside party. I floated there, smiling serenely. Not because I forgave him. Oh no. Just mentally noting where to aim first when things go sideways. Through all, death has a sense of humor too. Hearing Scott speak, Jean felt an overwhelming urge to telekinetically yeet someone into a wall. Did he seriously think she was too dumb to figure out this might be a prank? Even Charles had believed her. Charles, who second-guessed everything from mutant politics to future fashion trends. And even if it was a prank, wasn't it smarter to err on the side of not pissing off a self-proclaimed goddess with dark vibes? The worst part? She could hear his thoughts. God, he really thought he sounded cool. Cool. Like a bootleg James Bond who'd swapped out charm for passive aggression and sunglasses. Luckily, the goddess in question didn't look mad. Yet, Jean shot a glance at Charles. The old man gave her a little nod, reassurance or permission to ignore Scott unclear, but she took it as the former. She turned to Hela, trying to keep her voice calm and diplomatic, even though internally she didn't like this situation. I'm sorry for what my comrade said, she said, giving Scott's general direction the same look one might give a particularly useless fire extinguisher. He didn't mean to disrespect you or anything. He's just naturally suspicious. Like a raccoon. Hope you can forgive him. Hela nodded, seemingly unbothered, which was a relief, until Jean heard Scott's thoughts again. He wasn't happy she apologized. In fact, he was internally monologuing about how right he was. He was actually preparing to say it out loud, which would have made things so much worse. Before his mouth could betray them all, Jean mentally flicked the mute button on him like a fed-up Zoom host. Scott's mouth kept moving, but all that came out was a muffled, MMF. He looked like someone trying to mime an invisible sandwich. Jean didn't even glance at him. She turned to Charles. The old man's knowing smile suggested he caught on. To all this, Hela chuckled softly, thoroughly entertained. Telepathic gag order? Brutal. Efficient. This goddess approves. Jean didn't smile, but deep down she was thinking about how to end this situation. Well, this was awkward. Charles and Scott were staring at the empty space where Hela definitely was. They couldn't see her while Jean could. Unfortunately, seeing someone didn't mean she had any clue how to talk to them, looking at the death-draped figure floating across from Jean like a queen at court. Hela, Queen of Asgard, or so she had proclaimed. Jean strangely believed her. Every inch of Hela radiated power, cold and ancient, the sort of presence that made you feel like blinking was a privilege she hadn't yet revoked. Jean, who wasn't great at social interactions in general, didn't know what to say. Words seemed too small, too clumsy, for a conversation with a figure who looked like she'd once danced in the ruins of kingdoms. The silence was growing louder, and Jean, who was under mental pressure and was about to say some nonsense, heard Hela speak. "Let's discuss like civilized people," she said, looking like she was granting them some privilege. "No tension. Ask what you want. I'll answer what I feel like." Translation: **, you may speak. I might not listen, **. Jean relayed the message to Charles, who looked intrigued, and Scott, who looked like he'd rather punch a ghost. And as this bizarre peace talk began, far across the realms, someone else with a deep connection to Hela was not having a peaceful day. Odin's POV. For a year now, Odin Allfather, ruler of Asgard, wielder of wisdom and chronic micromanager, had been living in the divine equivalent of airplane mode. One day, poof. No more glimpses of the future. One of the perks of being a cosmic overlord was seeing every timeline like it was a library catalog. Past, present, future, alternate realities, you name it. And now? Just static. He could still peer into dimensions and observe the shifting threads of various universes, sure, but time itself? Completely off limits. Past and future were blacked out like sensitive government files. First, Odin panicked in a very dignified, kingly way, which mostly meant brooding dramatically on his throne while Heimdall pretended not to notice. But eventually, the Allfather did what all ancient beings do when the universe stops making sense. He shrugged, poured himself a metaphysical drink, and decided to roll with it. He had more important things to worry about anyway. Like Ragnarok. You know, the end of days, total annihilation, minor scheduling conflict. His master plan? Ensure Thor didn't end up like Hela, a flaming ball of resentment and eyeliner. So he did what any responsible parent would do, yeeted his son to Midgard, wiped his memory, sealed his powers, and hoped he'd learn humility from binge drinking with mortals. To Odin's surprise, it worked. Thor had grown, become more grounded, even learned what a toaster was. Progress. Of course, Odin monitored him constantly, using his cosmic awareness. Thor so much as sneezed near a moral dilemma, Odin knew about it. But recently, he'd realized he wasn't alone in his cosmic frustration. Even the Ancient One had dropped by with that charmingly vague smile, muttering something about the time stone feeling off lately. So yes, something was messing with time. Something big. Something annoying. Till Odin remained calm. As long as this mysterious interference didn't touch Asgard or his precious son, he'd let it slide. But if it did, well, someone was going to find out what happens when the Allfather stops being chill. Fortunately for Hela, she'd managed to keep her curiosity under control, barely. Yes, she had Viper do a bit of digging, but nothing that required getting within sneezing distance of Thor. She had considered peeking in on Thor's charming little human life. Maybe laugh at his fashion sense, maybe flick a pebble at him from across the street. But ultimately, she decided against it. With her luck, Heimdall or Odin, that one-eyed hypocrite, might have been watching. She didn't survive 5,000 years of war and exile just to get zapped over curiosity. Good call, really. Instead, she was enjoying the far more reasonable setting of Earth, engaging in what could only be described as a very special interrogation? Interview? Group therapy session? In front of her sat Charles Xavier, wheelchair-bound but with enough self-possession to run a small kingdom. Hank, the oversized smurf with too many degrees, kept glancing around like a paranoid squirrel, probably trying to observe the energy signature of an invisible goddess or some such nonsense. Then there was Scott, trying to look cool and ready, the kind of man who would dramatically remove his sunglasses and promptly walk into a wall. Adorable. Charles, with that infuriatingly composed expression, finally spoke. So, Your Majesty Hela, the last time you visited Earth was around 2,500 years ago? Hela gave him a tight smile. Jean, bless her little mortal brain, was doing her best, relaying everything Hela said and did to Charles via telepathy, which she'd only allowed for Charles, not for Hank, who would probably want to dissect her molecules, and definitely not for Cyclops over there, whose personality seemed to start and end with "brood with style." Charles was decent, though. Not the saintly version she vaguely remembered from some comics, but still solid. With her age and experience, she could spot a genuine soul faster than most people could blink. I did come to Earth back then, she said lightly. With my father, Odin, yes, that Odin. We had some creative differences about conquest, which ended with me being banished as he was stronger than me at that time and he rewrote history. As you do in divine family squabbles. Jean's mental gasp practically echoed in the air. Wait, you're Odin's daughter? But I thought Hela was Loki's kid? Oh, history. Such a delightful liar. Touché, little redhead, Hela thought dryly. That's exactly why she introduced herself as Queen of Asgard earlier. Might as well let the mortals start adjusting their worldview before dropping the whole family drama on them. Loki. Hela snorted. Darling, Loki doesn't even know I exist. I'm about 3,000 years older than him. Whatever Midgard thinks it knows about me, just toss it into the trash. Actually, burn it first, then toss the ashes into a black hole. Jean just nodded, stunned. Oh. Charles, ever the gentleman, cleared his throat, fingers steepled like a man about to give either a lecture or a eulogy. If I may ask, what brings you to Earth now after so long? Clever man. Direct without being confrontational. She liked that. Till she arched a brow. I already told Jean, but since you're so polite. She floated comfortably with the air of someone recounting the plot of a soap opera. Earth's quite the little gem. The mutants with terrifying potential, gods playing peekaboo, eldritch entities knocking on the dimensional door like trick-or-treaters. It's honestly a circus, and I love a good show. She tilted her head slightly, gaze flicking toward Jean. And this one, your little red star here, is the avatar of one of the oldest beings in the multiverse. She's either going to be the salvation of your species or the reason the sun explodes early. Either way, I didn't want to miss it. I'm here to pass the time and maybe place a few bets. The room went quiet, and for a moment Hela felt genuinely amused. Ah, trolling people. So enjoyable. Jean's POV. Hey girl, wake up. It's already late. I opened my eyes, looked at the clock, 6 a.m. Have you ever experienced being awakened by a goddess every morning? I did. It has been a week since I met Goddess Hela. Anyway, I acknowledge her as Hela. Till sometimes she is just like a kid throwing a tantrum but with greater power. Seriously, I don't even have school or anything, but I have to be awakened by her this early for a full 7 days now. Till today is very special, so well, let's forgive her. I sat up and stretched, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. Today is very special because the school is about to be officially opened by Charles. In the past week, although no X-Men have been recruited, Charles has managed to recruit many mutants rejected by the outside world as students. So now I not only have a ghost friend, at least I treat her as a friend, but also would no longer be so lonely with many people in the mansion, though it would be annoying hearing their thoughts. I looked at Hela, who was hovering above me, murmuring, I don't even know why you need to waste so much time sleeping. You don't even need it in the first place. I could swear that I feel like she is envious, although I don't have any proof. But this isn't the first time I've had this feeling. I see this side of her most of the time when we are eating food, though I'm not sure if it's my illusion. I chuckled at her. You know, sleep is really good. It's just the kind of feeling that makes you satisfied. She just shrugged. Yeah. Now, if you excuse me, let's go watch TV first. They're about to report about the astronauts group in space. They are the first official superheroes in modern times on your Earth, after all. Let's witness history. Thinking of this, Hela has been talking about this event for weeks, saying that when those scientists return to Earth, they would already have superpowers and they would start the age of the supernatural. Naturally, I'm really curious because it would really determine if Hela is as strong and powerful as she claims. Still, I really can't see how a group of nerds who are like me could become superheroes. After getting ready, I threw on a casual outfit, jeans and a sweater, before heading downstairs. The mansion was already buzzing with activity. I spotted Charles near the grand staircase, speaking with a young boy who couldn't have been older than 12. Kid looked nervous, his fingers flickering with tiny sparks of electricity. Charles placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, and the boy visibly relaxed. A melancholic smile couldn't help but slip onto my face. Once upon a time I was like this boy, rejected by the world and nervous about my power. Now it's time for those in similar situations like the old me. He's good at that, Hela remarked, floating beside me. Giving hope to the hopeless. I nodded. That's why he's doing all this. Hela scoffed teasingly. Or he's just collecting pawns for his little game. I frowned. You don't really believe that. She just continued floating indifferently without replying. Anyway, her usual cool style. I followed Hela down the corridor toward the lounge, where a flat-screen TV had already been set up by Charles a long time ago, displaying news. Although in the hall there are many students, most of them seem not interested. Of course, this doesn't include those like me who aren't looking for friends. Breaking news. NASA has lost contact with the Astral 1 mission crew after an unexpected solar flare disrupted communications. The astronauts, led by Dr. Reed Richards, were conducting experiments in Earth's orbit when the incident occurred. Authorities are working to re-establish contact, but concerns are growing for the safety of the crew. Hela crossed her arms, a smug smirk playing on her lips. Right on schedule. Before I could say something, the screen flickered, cutting to shaky footage of a spacecraft streaking through the atmosphere, smoke trailing behind it. Gasps erupted around the room as the news ticker updated. Astral 1 spacecraft has re-entered Earth's atmosphere, crash landing reported in upstate New York. Emergency crews en route. Hela clapped her hands together, delighted. And there it is. The dawn of a new era. I didn't speak but was looking intensely at the spacecraft crashing. I could only hope it wouldn't cause any damage while also looking a little bit towards the future Hela described, one full of superhumans, meaning mutants would no longer be rejected. Meanwhile, in the spaceship in question, things aren't as bad as they seem because there's no one panicking. After all, they are all unconscious, apart from a certain Ms. Viper. Systems failing. Hull breach in T-10. Note to self, Viper hissed, angry. Next time Richard says calculated risk, shoot him first. Everything happened exactly like the goddess had told her. First, she joined Reed's team as a special member, specially placed by the government. She won their trust in only 2 days, saying she only wanted to see the cosmic storm, invested funds and all, which made everything better. She had to say that during this week she remembered why she hated scientists in the first place, thanks to Reed. He was simply the epitome of the kind of people she hates. The man was casually playing with the lives of people who trusted him in order to discover the truth. He really thought of himself as the most intelligent because he literally didn't listen to suggestions made by anyone. Now, looking at the spacecraft crashing, normally she would think there's no way she would survive this *T. But then she remembered, she is the chosen one of a death goddess, so why fear death? Plus, Hela said that they would be all right as long as she survived the cosmic radiation. So it would be enough, right? Among the 5, she was the only one awake, probably because of her stronger willpower and the Super Soldier Serum. Having almost the best control that a human can have over their body, she could literally feel that she was mutating. just hoping that she don't become a rock monster like Hela said Ben would become. Just like that, she saw her right hand starting to glow green with some kind of gas escaping. It literally became a gas, which shocked her. What if I don't have a physical body? The goddess can probably reshape one for me, right? Ain't lying here, I'm a little panicked. What kind of world domination can there be without a physical body? Still, it wasn't the time to worry as she braced herself for impact, instinctively reaching for something to hold. But to her utter disbelief, the steel literally dissolved and melted. Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D., sat in his office, eyes scanning a stack of classified documents and reports. Each one detailed recent developments linked to Charles Xavier, an individual whom Fury considered one of the most dangerous men on the planet. Possibly the most dangerous. While many saw Magneto as the biggest threat, Fury knew better. Xavier's telepathy placed him in a different league altogether. The ability to read minds, control thoughts, and even kill without lifting a finger, so long as someone was within his psychic range, made him a force that couldn't be underestimated. And now, this man was planning to open a school for mutants? Every step he took had to be scrutinized. Beep. 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 The sharp tones sliced through the room. Fury didn't enjoy interruptions, especially while reading something critical, but this sound he recognized. Only a handful of people had access to that line. Hill, Barton, Romanoff, and Coulson. If it was coming from them, it was serious. Director, it's Hill. Something's happened that requires your attention and immediate decision. I'm sending you the details now. Classic Maria Hill, no frills, just facts. Efficient and to the point. As her voice faded from the secure device, a set of new files appeared on the same screen. The device, a compact yet powerful mini-computer, functioned much like a full desktop. It could send and receive images, video, documents, anything. Fury's single eye narrowed as he opened the files. First image showed a spacecraft drifting in space. The next, that same spacecraft struck by a strange red wave or wind, and finally the vessel plummeting back toward Earth. So far, nothing out of the ordinary. Fury had a decent understanding of the spacecraft in question. After all, any object leaving Earth's atmosphere and entering space was tracked by S.H.I.E.L.D. He knew the truth about alien life, and he wasn't about to let anything slip through the cracks. He scrolled further, his eye flicking across the data until it stopped. The next image brought an immediate shift in tone. The image, likely captured by the satellites, showed something far stranger. A thick green gas seeping from the wreckage post-impact. It wasn't fire. It wasn't smoke. It was gas, dense, unnatural, swirling as if it had a mind of its own. Then came another image. This one blurry but unmistakable, a humanoid figure standing amidst the ruins. Her form was flickering erratically, phasing between a solid body and a gaseous state, as if she couldn't decide what she was. Unfortunately, one can't see the complete image as if being interfered with. Fury's frown deepened. Gas forms? The mutation mid-impact, he muttered. What the hell happened up there? The figure Fury was now observing, alive and standing amidst the wreckage, was none other than Ms. Viper. Against all odds, she had survived an impact that should have killed any human. But even though she had lived through the crash, she knew this was no time to celebrate. Based on her calculations, the spacecraft had most likely crashed somewhere in New York. And knowing how quickly the government, or more precisely the military or S.H.I.E.L.D., responded to such incidents, she figured she had only minutes before they arrived. Staying put wasn't an option. The moment, she was operating under the alias Elena Vetrova, a fabricated identity she'd constructed with precision. A gifted rich scientist on paper, complete with all the credentials and background details necessary to pass a casual check. But she knew S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't in the business of casual. The moment they dug deeper, they'd uncover the inconsistencies. Clock was ticking. Unfortunately, her body was still unstable. Though the mutation had seemingly reached its conclusion, she hadn't yet regained full control. Her form continued to flicker between her normal human body and a strange gaseous state. Till something had clearly changed. More alarming, however, was the nature of her gas state. Each time one of her feet accidentally phased into gas and touched the ground, the earth beneath would hiss and melt, as though it had come into contact with some potent acid. Whatever she had become, it was dangerous. Vroom! 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 The sudden roar of engines at high speed reached her ears, instantly putting her on edge. She turned quickly, her muscles tensing as she prepared to either fight or flee. But when the vehicle came into view, her posture eased. It wasn't a military convoy. It definitely wasn't S.H.I.E.L.D. Car was a sleek, jet-black muscle vehicle, custom-built and far too stylish to belong to any government agency. Skidded to a halt just a few yards from her, spraying dust and gravel into the air. A moment later, the tinted window rolled down, revealing a face she knew well. Before he could even speak, Viper let out a low, amused chuckle. Well, if it isn't Pierce's little lapdog. There was no mistaking him. Hydra through and through. Brock Rumlow, better known as Crossbones, right-hand man to Alexander Pierce, and one of Hydra's most reliable enforcers. Although Hydra was technically an organization, in truth it lacked a single clear supreme leader at present. There were only high-ranking members, each with their own ambitions. Among them stood Baron Strucker, consumed by his obsession with obtaining powers, Baron Zemo, ever the enigma, Alexander Pierce and Arnim Zola, who operated as hardline allies determined to gain control over all the world's governments. If it was Baron Strucker's people who had come to her rescue, then it wouldn't be much different from being captured by a government faction. Strucker would lock her down, study her, try to turn her into a weapon. But Alexander Pierce, he was a different case altogether. Pierce's current focus was on controlling S.H.I.E.L.D., not on experimenting with superhumans. He would rather ally himself with another Hydra elite to push his agenda forward than waste resources on trying to tame her. That made him more useful for now. Anyway, she thought with cold confidence, even if I'm the weakest among the Hydra Supremes at the moment, it's only because I've only just reached this status. With enough time, I'll dominate them all. And if things got truly dire? If I can't save myself, she reasoned, I'll ask the goddess for help. She'll definitely teleport me to her realm. She wouldn't let me rot here, right? Rumlow had no idea what she was thinking. He simply stood there, stoic and silent, even as she wore that unsettling smile, mocking the very man who had just rescued her. But of course he didn't comment. This was Ms. Hydra. Among the high-ranking members, she was reputed to be the most unhinged of them all. A complete psychopath who loved chaos for its own sake and feared nothing. And given that she had just melted the ground beneath her feet moments ago, he had no intention of provoking her. When she noticed Rumlow didn't respond, it irked her. "You're boring," she said flatly, her tone sharp with disdain. But her irritation quickly gave way to practicality as a more pressing issue came to mind. "So, how are we going to escort me? Are you sure that your vehicle can withstand my poison?" Rumlow smirked beneath his tactical mask, though she couldn't see it. "Don't worry, Ms. Hydra," he replied coolly. "This isn't just any vehicle. It's been specially modified to handle internal grenade blasts, extreme temperatures, and even acid. Dr. Zola designed it himself." Viper smirked hearing what he said. She didn't doubt Zola. Although she hates scientists, it doesn't mean she wouldn't use their invention. Well, she overestimated the car because when she hopped on the back where it's specially enhanced, although it didn't completely melt it up, it was still being eroded slowly. What she didn't see trying to control her body was the shocked expression of Rumlow, who have seen the scenes through the interior mirror. He didn't completely stated this, but in fact Zola, as a man who calculate every possibilities, didn't create this vehicle for fun or something. It was created at the time when Hydra was looking at the cosmic cube. Zola said that this vehicle can contain almost anything, only if something like a nuclear bomb exploding can shatter it or cause big damage. Although he didn't why Miss Hydra's body have such a high-level gas or aside and how she survived, he knew one thing for certain: this woman would probably become more dangerous than ever. Such a dangerous woman shall never be provoked. Back at Xavier's school for gifted youngsters, Hela still had no idea how things ended. The footage had just cut off, abrupt, jarring, as the spacecraft plummeted from the sky like a rock. Maybe the government pulled the plug. Maybe it was censorship nonsense. Either way, she didn't really care. Things seemed to have played out the way they were meant to. Her connection to Viper remained intact, even if that whole contract business was just decorative fluff. Honestly, she hadn't bound Viper to anything. She'd merely granted her access to a fragment of Hell's energy, like how Dormammu or the Vishanti lend their power to mortals. The difference? No deals, no bargains, no strings. The issue was simple. The energy sat dormant in Viper's body, waiting. Viper couldn't harness it, not without knowledge of the spells, rituals, or metaphysical structure. It was like giving someone a loaded gun but not teaching them how to shoot. Still, if she ever faced death, it'd activate. It would protect her. Hela wasn't worried. She trusted in her power. If she couldn't earn someone's loyalty without manipulation or mind games, then maybe she didn't deserve it. Better to fade into nothing than live as a pretender god clinging to fear. Right now, her focus was back on Jean. Over the past week, she'd basically been glued to the redhead's side, watching, observing, analyzing. Every expression, every whisper of emotion. And yeah, she had to admit it, she'd been full of crap. Jean wasn't the ticking time bomb she'd thought she was. She was just a lonely girl, broken in places no one could see, whose last real friend had probably been a decade ago. She wore cool detachment-like armor, but underneath it all, she just wanted someone, anyone, to truly see her. Seriously, who treats a literal ghost like a friend for a week unless they're desperate for connection? Maybe if Charles hadn't tampered with her so early, things would have played out differently. That's what it looked like anyway. Too bad the fool had no idea what kind of force he was meddling with. By the time he started building those mental walls and artificial restrictions, the damage had already been done. Mind, body, soul, guard in all the wrong ways. And because of that, Jean never got the chance to become what she was meant to be, the perfect host for the Phoenix Force. Now, all Hela could do was try to help her embrace that power, embrace the dark, the light, the storm in between. If not, well, say hello to Dark Phoenix. And if it were up to her, she'd drag Jean down to hell and be done with it. But that shiny-headed old woman would probably remind her real fast why Earth's gods tended to stay in their lanes. Hela still wasn't sure why the Ancient One hadn't stepped in yet. Maybe she didn't know. Maybe she was just watching. Or maybe she wasn't even on Earth right now. That was the most troubling possibility. Whatever the case, Hela wasn't about to poke that particular hornet's nest. She wasn't in the mood for beef with that woman or man or whatever she was. Not when she was still trying to move freely on this realm. Ugh, is it really too much to ask? She muttered, lost in her own head. I just want a body. Be free. Not bother anyone. But nope, this world's all about who's got the bigger stick. Did you say something? Jean turned her head, raising a brow. Like she'd caught something on the edge of thought. Hela smirked. Just wondering how long your school's gonna last before the next attack. Wanna bet? Jean rolled her eyes, deadpan. Classic. Hela was the ultimate jinx. She had warned her, something weird happened practically every week. An attack, a mutant flipping out, or some ancient evil randomly unsealing itself. And now that she'd said it out loud, well, countdown started. Still, Jean's voice was calm when she answered. This time, I'll protect the people I care about. No matter what. When she finished speaking, Hela blinked, surprised. She hadn't expected that kind of resolve. It wasn't bravado. It was belief. And in that moment, Jean realized something. Hela had underestimated her. She always does, Jean thought. But for once, that didn't make her feel small. She'd never wished harder for her powers to work, just so she could know what Hela was thinking right now. Before she could ask, someone else interrupted. Hey, Jean, the professor gave us permission. Want to hatch a movie with me? It was Scott, all hopeful charm and awkward confidence, standing there like a nervous prom date. Even if her powers didn't work on Hela, they worked just fine on everyone else. Jean heard Scott's thoughts loud and clear. Please say yes. Please say yes. Practice this in the mirror. She almost sighed. He looked so pitiful she actually debated accepting, just so she wouldn't crush his enthusiasm. Before she could answer, Hela cut in. Think before you say yes, she said evenly. You know exactly what's in his mind. Jean glanced at her, unsure, but Hela didn't waver. A man deserves clarity, not pity. If you don't love him, if you don't want to be his girlfriend, then don't accept just to keep him happy. That's not kindness, it's cruelty wrapped in politeness. Harsh. But honest. Jean flinched at the truth. Hela was right. She didn't know what Scott was thinking, and that was the issue. His thoughts were loud, hopeful, painfully earnest. But was that enough? She hadn't really let herself consider it before. Or rather, she'd avoided thinking about it. Too scary. Too much pressure. But now, looking at him again, she made her choice. Sorry, Scott, she said gently. I've got something to do after today's ceremonies. Scott's face fell for a fraction of a second, but he covered it quickly with a forced smile. Oh, no problem. It's another time, then. She's totally avoiding me. Did I do something wrong? Maybe I came on too strong. Jean winced internally. Yeah, she definitely heard that. Hela, on the other hand, watched him walk away with a thoughtful look. She couldn't help but think of a certain someone, Mr. Sinister, that egomaniacal geneticist-turned-villain with the world's most dramatic obsession. The man wanted to overthrow Apocalypse. And his big master plan? Breed a mutant that could surpass him. Reasonable in theory. But then he'd fixated on Scott and Jean. Obsessed over their potential like some sick fanboy scientist. Honestly, it was one of Marvel's biggest cosmic jokes. The theory went something like this. Cyclops comes from a carefully cultivated bloodline, engineered by Amanda Mueller, one of Sinister's early allies, to absorb ambient energy endlessly, discharging it through his optic blasts. Jean, on the other hand, channels psychic energy in great feats but is limited by the energy she possesses. So Sinister's logic? Combine the two and their child could absorb unlimited energy and wield it with psychic precision. A mutant who could theoretically accomplish anything, assuming they didn't burn out in the process. And that was a neat theory until the Phoenix Force came along. What's more infinite than that? Yet Sinister never dropped his plan. Never pivoted. Still thought that a child of Scott and Jean could defeat Apocalypse. Now, watching Scott shuffle off, Hela wondered, had Sinister already tampered with him? It wouldn't surprise her. Not at all. After all, obsession makes people do the stupidest things. Cape Citadel. An American military stronghold situated along the Florida coastline, safeguarded by layers of steel, cutting-edge radar systems. It was a place where missiles lay dormant and where men with a single command wielded the power of gods. Today, however, that fortress stood under siege. Ordinarily, regardless of the identity of any would-be attacker, those stationed within Cape Citadel remained steadfast in their confidence. Personnel here were not just soldiers, they were the embodiment of the word elite. After all, who would dare to mount an assault on such an impenetrable facility? But today defied precedent. A small contingent of terrorists had launched an attack. Their numbers were few, yet the terror they unleashed was unparalleled. The defenders, those who had trained for the worst, were confronted with something they had never imagined. Leading the charge was a man with green skin and an elongated tongue resembling a toad more than a human. Beside him, a woman with icy blue skin and glacial eyes displayed combat prowess that reduced even the most seasoned elite operatives to helpless onlookers. Others in their group were equally extraordinary, wielding powers far beyond the realm of human understanding. Yet none of them inspired as much dread as the man at their helm. Draped in crimson and violet, cloaked in both arrogance and unshakable purpose. Magneto. His name alone had the power to silence a room. Regarded as the most dangerous mutant alive, the world labeled him a terrorist. He saw himself as something else entirely, the harbinger of a new era. He hovered inches above the ground, his cape unfurling behind him like a war banner. All around him, firearms twisted and contorted like paper, tanks imploded upon themselves, and steel-reinforced doors peeled open as though made of tinfoil. With a mere motion of his hand, entire defensive systems were rendered obsolete. Magneto's gaze swept across the compound. He gave a slow, deliberate nod. Just as Mystique had described. Everything was in position, nuclear launch codes, uplinks to satellite controls, and prototype weapons hidden beneath the base. All now within his grasp. So long as nothing interfered, today would signal the dawn of a new era. A nation fears what it cannot control, Magneto said quietly, his tone calm and resolute. But soon they will learn what it means to bow. He did not seek wealth. He had no interest in fame. What Magneto demanded was recognition. Submission. A world that would no longer see mutants as aberrations or threats, but as rulers. As the future itself. Cape Citadel was merely the opening move. A demonstration of mutant supremacy against the most advanced weapons humanity could muster. For today, the message would be clear. Homo sapiens no longer reigned supreme. Homo superior had arrived, led by Magneto. He raised a hand. The earth trembled beneath him. Let them witness the birth of a new age, he declared, his eyes blazing with purpose. Let the rulers of men know fear. And with that, Magneto acted. The events at Cape Citadel rapidly dominated news broadcasts across the globe. The government had neither concealed the attack nor attempted to. In truth, it couldn't. Given Magneto's dramatic tendencies, they fully expected him to seize a broadcast channel to spread his message. It was better, they concluded, to inform the public themselves while attempting to manage the fallout. An unprecedented assault on Cape Citadel? Mutant extremists, led by the known terrorist Magneto? Authorities continue to assess the damage, though early reports indicate television was abruptly shut off. Charles Xavier sat in silence, his expression more severe than ever before. He had envisioned countless strategies to shift public perception regarding mutants. In an instant, Magneto had shattered them all. Jean Grey, observing Charles's stern expression, felt a deep sense of sorrow. She had never seen him so angry before. She knew how tirelessly he worked for peace, and how this incident would only make that work infinitely harder. "Ha! At least you won the bet," came Hela's smug remark. "Your school and the X-Men went more than a week without incident. It must be the magic of being newbies." Jean's brow twitched in irritation. Was this really the time for jokes? Still, is it truly destined for the future to descend into chaos? Am I really to become some god's avatar? She had hoped, naively perhaps, that Hela's warnings had been exaggerations, that the future wouldn't unravel like a comic book storyline. But now she clenched her teeth. In contrast to Jean and Charles's distress, the others in the room did not share the same solemnity. Bobby and Warren, in fact, appeared intrigued, perhaps even excited. After all, what boy hadn't fantasized about becoming a superhero and saving the world? Still oblivious to the full gravity of the situation, Bobby turned to Professor Xavier with a question. "Professor, when are we going to step in? I don't think the government can stop Magneto." And he was right. Magneto was a threat of the highest order. Conventional weaponry had little to no effect on him. Before Xavier could respond, Hank, who had been focused intently on a compact computer device, spoke up. "Charles, I think you'll want to turn the TV back on. The situation has evolved. Something was terribly wrong." Charles picked up the remote and turned the screen back on. A new image appeared, one far more ominous than before. Magneto, his helmet gleaming in the firelight of the ruined military base, stood before a camera. "People of the world," his voice echoed through every speaker, calm yet forceful. You have been deceived. For generations, you have called us freaks, abominations, threats. His eyes burned with fury. But today you will call us what we truly are, your betters. Behind him, the remains of Cape Citadel smoldered. A missile, torn from its housing, hovered ominously above the wreckage, held aloft like a grotesque trophy. This was not an attack, Magneto continued. It was a demonstration. A glimpse of the power you've spent your history denying. He raised his hand, and the missile crumpled effortlessly, reduced to twisted metal. You built your world on steel and fire, convinced of your invincibility. But your weapons are playthings to us. Camera panned outward, revealing his allies, Mystique, Toad, and the others, standing like sentinels of the new world. The era of humanity's rule has ended. The era of mutants has begun. The broadcast ended as abruptly as it had begun. Well, Hela murmured, her tone low, that escalated quickly. She hadn't expected things to grow so exciting so soon. This was shaping up to be a quintessential first mission for the X-Men, facing Magneto after he had seized Cape Citadel. Truthfully, she had intended to return to Hell to examine the rewards she had recently accumulated. One in particular was especially promising, and she was eager to see how Viper was progressing as well. But clearly, those plans would have to wait. Wow. Gotta admit, Magneto looked kind of cool back there, Bobby commented. But seriously, does he really believe he can bring the government to its knees just like that? Like most civilians, Bobby didn't fully grasp the strategic significance of Cape Citadel. Not yet. Charles took a deep breath, feeling tense because of the situation, and started explaining. All right, listen, he began, his voice calm. He was the spiritual pillar here and should never appear panicked. The Citadel isn't just some high-security military base. It's one of the most dangerous places on the planet. He paused, making sure everyone was paying attention before continuing. To put it simply, it has nuclear launch codes, satellite uplinks, experimental weapons stashed under layers of concrete, and a laundry list of things that could wipe cities off the map. He looked around the room, his eyes briefly lingering on each of them. Now, all of that is in Eric's hands. And trust me, if he gets pissed off enough, he won't just posture. He might actually launch something at New York or somewhere worse. And if that happens, we're looking at a full-blown catastrophe. Charles knew Eric too well. They used to be friends, closer than brothers once, and that's what made this all the more terrifying. He knew what Eric had been through, how deep his hatred for humanity ran now. At best, he'd use the threat to pressure the government. But Charles also knew how this kind of standoff played out. The government wouldn't budge, Eric would lose his patience, and then, boom. He'd drop a bomb not to kill millions but to send a message. A warning. But even that would be too much. Charles's mind was racing, searching for any countermeasure, any chance they had to stop this before it began. Right now, the X-Men team was thin. Too thin. Scott, Jean, Warren, Hank, and Bobby, that was it. That was all he had. If it came down to a direct confrontation, well, Scott wasn't on Eric's level. Jean's powers were overwhelming but unstable. Warren and Hank? Good-hearted, brave, but they wouldn't last a minute against someone like Magneto. The only wild card was Bobby. Charles had always sensed something in him, a kind of quiet, untapped potential that rivaled even Jean's. If she was an Omega-level mutant, Bobby wasn't far off. But watching the boy joke around like everything was a game, Charles couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. "We need a plan," Scott said, breaking the silence. His voice was calm and composed, but the uncertainty in his eyes betrayed him. He might be the field leader, but right now he needed guidance. Charles nodded slowly and turned toward Hank. "Hank, I want you to push forward with the Blackbird upgrades. Get it flight ready now." He shifted his attention to Jean. "Jean, I need your help with Cerebro. We're close. If we can finish that project, it could give us a real edge." Then to Scott, his tone firm. Start pulling together everything we know on Magneto and his men. Analyze it. Monitor them in real time. And I want you to come up with every possible scenario, every fighting plan you can imagine, no matter how unlikely. Warren, Charles added, see if you can leverage your family's influence. Talk to your father. We need government permission to act without getting shut down ourselves. Make it happen. And finally, his gaze landed on Bobby, who looked halfway between serious and trying not to laugh at the tension in the room. Bobby, Charles said, voice low but intense, you're the key to this. You're the only one whose powers aren't directly countered by Eric's. If you can keep him busy, tie him down, restrict him long enough for the others to move in and neutralize his team, we might have a shot. But for that to work, you need to take this seriously. No jokes. No distractions. This mission might very well depend on you. For a second, Bobby didn't respond. Then his usual grin faded just a little. I'll try, Professor, he said, voice quieter than usual. Good, Charles murmured, mostly to himself. 'Cause right now, trying was all they had. Hela's POV. Okay, wow. Charles Xavier dropped a plan. A very good plan, given the situation. I mean, it wasn't the greatest either, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but seriously, this is the same man who always looked more comfortable sipping tea and giving lectures than dealing with real threats? The same guy who carries the weight of mutant kind on his back, but still comes across like he's afraid to push back too hard? See, I've got centuries worth of memories, kings, conquerors, gods, megalomaniacs, but most of them are terrible under pressure. They either hesitate and die or overreact and start wars. Most of the time, Charles falls into this category, same as all his counterparts in the Illuminati, but he did a good job here. Although it could have been better. With his telepathy range, he could have gone 1 or 2 kilometers away from the Citadel, and apart from Magneto due to his helmet, he could have just put the rest in a coma. Once done, Magneto's current level isn't yet invincible. The 5 X-Men right now could definitely have defeated him. And read this comment. But am I stepping in to help the X-Men? Spoiler, nope. Not because I can't. Not because I'm scared. I'm just not interested in cleaning up someone else's mess. Especially when they're so clearly not ready for it. Let's be real here, they need this. They need to struggle, they need to fail, and most importantly, they need that epic anime-style character development where everything goes horribly wrong before they figure out how to be actually useful. Most of them, aside from Charles, have no idea what they're even fighting for. They think it's all about protecting mutants or fighting injustice or whatever vague slogan they're waving around. Yeah, okay, that's part of it. But there's no real purpose behind it. No vision for what comes after the final battle. No why. No big picture. Take Jean. She's strong, sure. Composed when she's not blowing up everything in sight. But even she's just reacting. She's fighting because she thinks she has to, not because she knows what she's actually fighting for. Without that, power becomes empty. Directionless. Dangerous. The whole team's just running around reacting to things instead of leading. They're strong but not solid. They're committed but not united. That's a recipe for disaster, not just for them but for everyone around them. That's why I'm staying out of it. Because if I step in now, they'll never learn. They'll never understand the weight of what they're doing. They need to see it. They need to feel it. They need to get their hands dirty. And don't even get me started on mutant kind as a whole. They have the potential to reshape the cosmos. But what are they doing with it? Hiding. Fighting among themselves. Putting their hopes in a handful of leaders and then blaming those same leaders when things fall apart. It's weak, not in power but in mindset. They don't know how to build something real. Something lasting. They wait for someone to save them, or worse, for the world to finally understand them. As if understanding has ever protected anyone from a bullet or a betrayal. And if they were mine? Hey, that's a very good idea. Imagine things that Earth didn't have in my previous life, like virtual reality games that are actually exciting, songs that would make someone feel like their soul is being healed. Ah, that's too good. And yes, I could make that real, if they were willing to follow. But they're not ready. Not yet. Right now, they still think they can fix the world by playing nice, by apologizing for being born different. They haven't hit bottom yet. They haven't seen how cruel the world really is, not just to mutants but to anyone who challenges the system. They need that despair. That break. That moment where every illusion shatters and they're forced to ask, what now? That's when I'll show up. Recruit free labor, recruit people from my hell dimensions, making hell reach the peak of the universe in a few years. So sorry guys, when you need a lady in shining armor to save you, I'll be there. But right now, you need some character development. Charles and his X-Men were under pressure, sure, but they weren't the ones boiling in the pot. Director, I've done everything I can, but the council still insists on seeing you in person, the assistant said, like someone announcing a funeral. Just hearing World Security Council was enough to give Fury a migraine and a sudden craving for retirement. A bunch of well-dressed bureaucrats who wouldn't know danger if it broke through the ceiling and slapped them with a live grenade. Yet somehow they always had the audacity to critique from behind their desks like they were judging a bad reality show. The world was steadily descending into chaos. Government-sanctioned mutant experiments were popping up like discount labs in basements. Reed Richards's brilliant little space project had gone full chaos, crashing spectacularly in New York. And of course the cherry on top, all 5 crew members survived with powers. Not mutant powers, which would have been too convenient, but something different. Something shiny and unclassified. Naturally, the government wanted to poke and prod the 5 like lab rats, and it fell on Fury to protect them. 'Cause apparently in a crisis he was the one babysitting radioactive astronauts. As if that wasn't enough, the 5th member? Not a scientist. Not an astronaut. Nope, she turned out to be Ms. Viper, one of the most lethal assassins on the planet. That Motherf *Cur had more fake identities than a cat has lives. Now that she had powers too? Great. Just great. She was quiet for now, but even silent snakes bite hardest. And just as Fury thought things couldn't get any dumber, Magneto decided to invade one of the world's strongest military strongholds like it was a Costco on Black Friday. He inhaled deeply before stepping into the so-called meeting room, which, of course, was just a bunch of floating holograms pretending to care. It was like Zoom for sociopaths. Honestly, he'd trade it all in a heartbeat to go back to the good old days of punching Nazis in the face. At least Hydra didn't bore him to death with procedure. Director Fury, the American representative began, voice sharp enough to cut diamonds and probably just as soulless. A spacecraft crash in New York. Mutant riots in Marseille. And now Magneto waltzing into a military base like he owns the place. Your inaction is costing lives. Ah, there it was, the moment he was waiting for. The blame dump. Let's be clear, Fury said, eyes narrowing. I wasn't allowed to interfere with Reed's project. Government classified it as normal. Until it blew up. He hadn't forgotten the bureaucratic hand that slapped his interference away. Looking back, it was probably Viper pulling strings behind the scenes. And as for Magneto, he added dryly, he waltzed into that base like it was Sunday brunch. No resistance. That's not S.H.I.E.L.D.'s failure. That's a U.S. military problem. S.H.I.E.L.D. never played well with others anyway, and Fury had no intention of falling on someone else's sword. Then his gaze shifted to the French rep. And when we tried investigating the mutant outbreak in Marseille, you blocked us, said S.H.I.E.L.D. couldn't be trusted. Said we'd leak secrets to the U.S. He let that sit for a beat. Hundreds died because of that call. Any other person might squirm under the weight of that accusation. But not politicians. They'd sell their mothers and invoice the funeral. You overstep, Director, the Frenchwoman snapped. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s actions in Marseille violated sovereign. Fury cut her off. It was human lives at stake. We were stopped because of politics. And the result? A massacre. Congratulations. He looked around at the Council of Ghosts. It's not that S.H.I.E.L.D. is ineffective. It's that every time we try to do our job, someone throws a rulebook at our face. He'd felt it for a long time, like someone was pulling strings from the shadows, deciding what they could and couldn't touch. Like this entire clown show was just someone's elaborate puppet theater. Finally, the British rep cleared his throat, sounding about as enthusiastic as a man announcing his own colonoscopy. This squabbling is unproductive. The motion remains. Magneto must be stopped and captured before he does something truly catastrophic. No one argued. Even Fury didn't push back. Because for once, they were all on the same page. Magneto might be a madman, but he was an effective madman. And no one wanted to see mutants running governments. Council could tolerate chaos, corruption, and incompetence, but losing control? That was a line they weren't ready to cross. So, Director Fury, do you have an action plan, or are we all just going to sit here waiting for Magneto to turn the base into a modern art installation? It was an American military base that got hit, but curiously enough, the US military didn't go in guns blazing like usual. Instead, they handed over the mess to S.H.I.E.L.D., which was either a sign of trust or an admission that even the Pentagon didn't feel like dying today. So the question wasn't out of place. Fury didn't bother to play coy. Retaking the base is going to be a very difficult task, especially since we're dealing with Magneto. He is basically the final boss of modern weaponry. The Chinese representative raised a skeptical brow. He wasn't buying what Fury was selling. Come on, Fury. If you've got a plan, spit it out. Magneto needs to be stopped at all costs. We don't have time for your usual routine. Now, Fury was used to spinning riddles and vague statements like a noir detective with a caffeine addiction. But even under the blunt pressure, his poker face didn't crack. The man had skin thicker than vibranium-coated bureaucracy. He stared at the Chinese rep, who remained as calm as Mont Tai. I'm not spewing bullshit. I'm explaining reality. Modern weapons are useless against Magneto. If we charge in like headless chickens, we'll just end up as metallic confetti. The representative didn't flinch. No, Director Fury. We're all very aware Magneto laughs in the face of tanks. But wasn't S.H.I.E.L.D. specifically created to deal with people like him? If you can't handle this, what's the point of your entire existence? Fury knew where this was going. Lately, more and more countries were side-eyeing S.H.I.E.L.D., grumbling about how it had become less of an international peacekeeping agency and more like America's personal organization. He couldn't argue with that. And honestly, he'd started asking the same question himself after he became the S.H.I.E.L.D. director. For some cosmic reason, all the weird shit on Earth seemed magnetically attracted to the States, specifically New York. It was as if New York City is the center of the universe. And whenever S.H.I.E.L.D. tried to get involved internationally, they had to navigate so much red tape and political whining that they looked more like bureaucrats in spandex than world-saving operatives. Fury sighed internally. This wasn't the time to play the victim or start monologuing like a supervillain. He had to speak facts before the room turned into a live-action blame game. My idea is very simple, Fury began, his voice as smooth as sandpaper on steel. Consider it a trial run for something I've had brewing in the back of my head for a long time. I call it Project Avengers. He let the name hang in the air like cigar smoke, waiting for a reaction that never came, just hologram stares and political poker faces. The concept is straightforward. Create a team of superhumans capable of handling supernatural threats. As it stands, I'm looking into recruiting Reed Richards and his team of conveniently mutated misfits. He smirked, but no one was laughing. If this works, it could save us a whole world of trouble. Future problems, say, another Magneto who thanks to his power think he is above everything could be handled swiftly. More than that, it'd give the public a shiny new banner of hope to worship, something to believe in besides celebrities and rig. Impossible, a voice cut in, sharp and immediate. Fury hadn't even finished his pitch, but honestly, he expected resistance. These people were consistent if nothing else. The man continued, eyes cold. S.H.I.E.L.D. already has more perks and privileges than a trust fund baby. Now you want a personal army of mutants under your command? That's not a solution. Fury didn't flinch. He'd been threatened by worse things than bureaucrats. Gentlemen, he said, his tone shifting to a polite threat, times have changed. He gestured vaguely toward the chaos of the modern world as if that explained everything, and in a way it did. We're not just dealing with Cold War relics or unstable regimes anymore. Now it's mutants, rogue-enhanced individuals, and other weirdos who think spandex equals supremacy. We need to adapt, he continued, his voice low but firm. Whether we like it or not, assembling a team of superhumans isn't just smart, it's inevitable. If we don't do it, someone else will. Take Charles Xavier, for instance. He tapped a folder on the table like it was a loaded gun. Our intel says he's been gathering mutants from around the world. Calls it a school. Sounds nice, right? Except it's a school that teaches kids how to set things on fire with their brains. And it just so happens that his students also double as his personal army. And not one of them answers to any known government. He let that sink in, watching their faces twitch like they'd tasted something sour. If Xavier pulls this off, others will follow. What happens if Tony Stark wakes up one day and decides to build his own superhuman but with a 5-star bar and a kill count? The only ones left without their own army would be us. We either take initiative or get left in the dust by billionaires, bald psychic cult leaders, and whatever flavor of crazy the universe spits at us next. He finished and let silence settle. Inside, he felt a flicker of pride. He knew these people. Politicians hated nothing more than being outclassed, outgunned, or, God forbid, out of control. What he didn't know, however, was that this would be the beginning of his long, bitter regret. Kind of regret that aged you faster than time itself. But for now, he had them thinking. That was enough. And at least one or two were already imagining their faces plastered next to headlines like "World Saved by Government Initiative." Not that they'd ever admit that out loud. While the world spiraled into panic over the latest cosmic disaster, Hela had more productive concerns, like how to rack up a higher enemy's hatred. All those fanfic main characters are busy hiding in holes like traumatized hamsters, and here I am brainstorming how to make even more enemies. Peak villain behavior, really. Her reasoning was simple in that dangerously unhinged kind of way. Strong enemies meant stronger rewards. But she had to be careful, because if Daddy Odin caught wind of her extracurricular villainy, things could go from fun to almost eternal imprisonment in a magical oubliette real fast. Now, as luck or sheer bad decision-making would have it, Hela did have someone in mind to poke with a sharp stick. Problem? That someone could bitch-slap Odin into Valhalla very quick. Not MCU Odin, no, that would be manageable. She was thinking comics Odin level. The one who casually arm-wrestled Galactus, threw hands with Celestials, and once drank enough mead to poison a black hole. And who was this terrifying figure she wanted to piss off? Thawne. Yes, that Thawne. Chaos incarnate. The ancient elder god who wrote the Darkhold like it was his emo poetry diary. The one who's been creepily hovering over Wanda Maximoff's life like a helicopter parent from hell. He basically groomed her powers since birth just so she could become his shiny new meat suit someday. It's kind of like the Phoenix Forces thing with Jean Grey if the Phoenix was a lot more manipulative and a lot less cosmic bird therapy. At least the Phoenix doesn't try to replace Jean. Thawne straight up wants to be Wanda. Naturally, interfering with that plan would put Hela on his eternal hit list. Screw it. No one's gonna stop me from meeting the Scarlet Witch. Not even Chaos Creep Daddy. This is the Marvel Universe after all. Reality breaks every Tuesday and timelines get reset like they're on a gotcha cooldown. Why bother worrying about a future that'll probably be erased by some crossover event anyway? With that fatalistic optimism, she set off to check in on Jean and Charles's little project, Cerebro. It had been over 24 hours since they started, and she was curious to see how badly they were messing it up. Because while Cerebro is one of the most important inventions in the Marvel Universe, it's usually treated like a glorified mutant GPS thanks to writers who clearly didn't want to explain how Professor X could literally scan all minds on Earth in his pajamas. When Hela strolled into the little Frankenstein lab Charles and Jean had cobbled together, the first thing she noticed wasn't the genius duo busy with world-saving science. Nah, it was Charles slumped over a terminal like someone who lost both his dignity and his last save file. His wheelchair? Oh boy. It looked like it had been modded with parts scavenged from a PlayStation 2, an old toaster, and probably some forgotten IKEA furniture. Charles and Jean looked up in perfect unison, which would have been creepy if Hela hadn't already seen worse. Without missing a beat, Charles squinted and muttered, "Is it the goddess? Wow. Dramatic much?" Till Hela had to give it to the old guy. Even though he hadn't quite unlocked full-access astral plane powers yet, he was getting eerily close. Like, if he trained a bit harder and maybe stopped thinking about useless things, he might actually be able to see her properly in a few days. Jean, bless her exhausted little heart, nodded to Charles like a loyal sidekick, then took a breath that screamed, "I'm 2 seconds away from a breakdown." Her eyes had that glazed-over look of someone trying to calculate 3 timelines at once. Honestly, with how much brain power she was using, Hela half expected smoke to start rising from her ears. It's a comic world after all, and girl was probably running hotter than a NASA server room. "Darling," Hela said with her trademark deadpan sass, "if you keep going like this, you're gonna fry yourself before you even get the chance to go head-to-head with Magneto. You trying to win the battle or die from brain burnout first?" Before Jean could fire back some noble excuse, Hela cut in like a queen who'd had enough. "Nope. Don't even start. It's break time. Inform your toaster-powered professor that we're going chill mode." Jean gave Charles a sheepish smile, like a kid telling their teacher they forgot their homework because aliens abducted it. "Sorry, Professor. Hela wants to, discuss something." Charles didn't put up a fight. He just nodded like a man who'd seen too much and aged 10 years in 24 hours. Honestly, he probably had. All this pressure building up like a soda can in the sun, and they were expected to stay sane? Miracles. Sighed as they made their way through the courtyard. Jean was watching the students. On the surface, everyone looked chill, like they were just vibing with their mutant lives. But Jean, being a mental eavesdropper extraordinaire, could hear the chaos inside them. Confusion. Anxiety. A touch of existential dread, real teen mutant crisis energy. Most of the kids here were rejects, booted from the normal world for daring to be different. Now they lived with this cocktail of bitterness and fear. On one hand, they low-key wanted revenge, burn the system, Magneto to succeed. On the other, they were terrified of Magneto being arrested, as it would leave them next on the government's most wanted with cool powers list. Jean sighed like someone who just read the comment section of a political post and regretted it immediately. She rubbed her temples as they stepped into the courtyard. Hela gave her a knowing smirk. "You're eavesdropping again, aren't you?" Jean didn't even bother denying it. Hela always saw right through her. It was like being friends with someone who had the cheat codes to your soul. "I just don't get it," Jean admitted, visibly struggling with that inner conflict. "Why do normal humans hate us so much? I mean, if I weren't a mutant, I'd probably be geeking out over people with powers. Isn't that what they always fantasize about in comics and movies? Flying laser eyes, the whole superhero gig?" Hela gave her a look. That dead-eyed, been-through-hell-and-back kind of look. Then she dropped the verbal nuke. "Jean, even you don't fully accept your powers. You needed Charles to slap a mental lock on your brain like it's Pandora's box. You treat your own DNA like it's some tragic tattoo you got while drunk in Vegas. So tell me, if you can't stomach your own power, how the hell do you expect regular people to?" Silence. If Hela had a mic, she would have dropped it. If Hela had a favorability system instead, like some cheap dating sim game, it's almost certain she'd see a cute little +1 pop up from the system panel. +1 from the Phoenix Force and +1 favorability from Dark Phoenix. A menage a deux of approval. Too bad she didn't. In front of her was just Jean's slightly shaken expression and the heavy silence that followed Hela's last sentence. Jean Grey blinked at her, frowning as if she were trying to shake off the weight of the words. What Hela had said, it hit a little too close to home. There was truth in it, a truth that nestled uncomfortably in her mind like a splinter under the skin. When she thought about it, really thought about it, how many mutants actually liked their powers? Aside from Charles and Magneto, two men who had practically made a lifestyle brand out of their mutations, most of the mutants she knew either tolerated their abilities or outright despised them. Take Hank, for example. One genius lab accident away from being turned into a walking science fair project. Big, blue, and fuzzy. He tried to act like he was okay with it, quoting Shakespeare with a straight face, but Jean had heard the thoughts he didn't say. He missed being able to fit into a restaurant booth. Scott couldn't even open his eyes without risking mass manslaughter. Lived his life like a budget cyclops, pun intended, seeing the world through blood-red filters. Warren, rich, gorgeous, and cursed with wings that made him look like he fell out of a Renaissance painting during a bad acid trip. Sure, he could fly, but that didn't exactly help when trying to attend a board meeting with his father's corporate cronies. Kind of hard to wear a suit when your scapulas are weaponized. And then there was Jean herself. No physical mutations to speak of. No monstrous transformations or wings or claws. Just the constant mind-shredding static of every thought, fear, and secret within a certain radius. A walking, talking antenna for humanity's collective anxiety. She sighed and looked at Hela. The woman was hovering lazily in midair, a picture of smug supernatural indifference, like a gothic lawn ornament that refused to obey gravity or social etiquette. It's not that we don't accept our powers, Jean said, crossing her arms. It's that they're inconvenient in daily life. Sometimes even dangerous. She frowned harder. Seriously, if you were in our place, what would you do? Hela tilted her head and gave her a look that was equal parts amusement and mockery. Good question, she said with a devilish grin. But unfortunately, I don't know. Probably use my powers to control people and become president. I mean, that is the supreme ruler of Earth, right? Jean stared at her. There was a beat of silence. She sighed again, deeper this time, dragging her hands down her face like she regretted every life choice that had brought her to this conversation. Why do I even bother asking you serious questions? Hela chuckled, still floating. Okay, she said, raising her hands in mock surrender. Maybe that was too much. You're clearly trying to have a heartfelt therapy moment, and I'm here treating it like some joke. She suddenly looked far more serious than usual, well, relatively. For Hela, seriousness was a slight drop in sarcasm levels. Look, dear, she began, voice smoothing out like velvet over a blade. Let me put it this way. Mutant powers come from a sort of genetic mutation. I won't bore you with the cosmic details right now, though, spoiler alert. It's cooler than you think, but for simplicity's sake, let's call it the X gene. Jean never expected that just like that, Hela would start talking about some hard secrets to her. She had always suspected that Hela might know the origin but never dared to ask. Now Hela had all her attention. Now, the first humans to have this little gem of a gene, Hela continued, circling Jean like a predatory professor, existed roughly 1 million years ago. A bit hard to get lab samples, of course, what with them being dust and all, but trust me, they were there. She paused and grinned. That gene? It was dormant. Then, somewhere around 17,000 years ago, give or take a century or 3, people started manifesting it. Conditions were met, cosmic dice were rolled, and poof, mutants. Hela waved her fingers for effect, mimicking a cheesy magic trick. Jean rolled her eyes. And now? Hela went on, fingers steepled dramatically. Now that humanity's had time to stew in pollution, microwaves, stress, and existential dread, that little gene is practically everywhere. Dormant in most, but still there. Waiting. She floated in close to Jean's face, her voice dropping to a whisper. Almost anyone can become a mutant now. All it takes is the right cocktail of misery and bad luck. Emo depression, gamma-ray showers, a hearty dose of radiation, pick your poison. Jean stared at her. So, you're saying we're all just one trauma away from evolving? Exactly. Hela beamed like a game show host. Isn't that just delightfully grim? Evolution powered by suffering. That Darwin man you've been explaining would have thrown up in his beard. Jean rubbed her temples. Apparently, her worldview seemed to have been affected. You have the worst way of explaining things. Hela just gave a devilish wink, then added, but back to your problem. Yeah, your powers suck in the getting a normal job department. But you're also walking nuclear weapons with anxiety issues. The world should really be more worried about you than the other way around. Jean grimaced. That's not comforting. I'm not here to comfort, Hela said, now floating upside down, her hair trailing like ink in water. I'm here to remind you that you could kill all those causing problems for you with a thought and conquer the others ruling them, and here you are enduring all kinds of suffering. Maybe mutants are masochists, murmured Hela, knowing Jean would hear it, which the latter did before just smiling helplessly. Hela didn't see the reaction she expected from Jean and was disappointed. Truly speaking, she had hoped that Jean would talk about how to use this information to her advantage and help mutants as a whole. But nah, the latter was just there, doubting her life. This is the problem with most mutants. It's almost as if they don't really want to solve the problem. It had been 3 days since Magneto strolled into Cape Citadel like he was redecorating the place for a housewarming party, only with less cake and more magnetic carnage. And today? Today was the big day. 3 days ago, he'd issued an ultimatum to the world's governments. A real straightforward one, too. Recognize mutant kind or prepare to be very, very sorry. Naturally, the U.S. government responded with all the tact and wisdom of a drunk raccoon in a trash can. And don't have grudge against raccoon. Instead of negotiating, they sent a crack team of diplomats, which is a generous term for what were clearly spies with the subtlety of a marching band in a library. They poked around, got caught trying to place bugs, and one of them even tried to flirt with Mystique. He didn't survive the embarrassment. Or the throwing knife. Honestly, Magneto couldn't even tell which one finished him off. Anyway, he was done playing nice. If they thought he was bluffing, well, surprise, motherf ***** airs. A day ago, he gave the world one final warning. Acknowledge mutants as a sovereign people with rights, or he'd start taking matters into his own gloved, dramatically gesturing hands. Now the 24 hours were up. He glanced sideways at Mystique, who was perched at a control panel with the casual grace of someone who could kill everyone in the room using only a paperclip and a bad attitude. Do it, he said. Hijack the airwaves. Time for show and tell. Mystique didn't even blink. With a few keystrokes, she broke through more firewalls than a teenage hacker on a Mountain Dew bender. Within seconds, every major broadcast channel in the U.S. began to flicker. CNN, Fox, ABC, hell, even the Weather Channel got booted from its usual loop of hurricanes and disappointed forecasters. The screen steadied, cutting to a single image. Magneto standing tall, looking like the world's most dangerous motivational speaker in a helmet that probably got more radio signal than the White House. Governments of the world. Leaders who've ignored us. People who pretend mutant suffering is just some kind of joke. Today you watch, he said, voice calm and theatrical, like he'd been practicing in the mirror. Spoiler, he had. You had your chance. You had plenty of chances. He took a slow breath, mostly for dramatic effect, and extended a hand. Behind him, a glowing holographic map of the United States appeared. Several red dots showed like warning lights on a nuclear bingo card. One in particular, bright and angry in the Nevada desert, lit up like a Christmas tree in hell. This, Magneto said, gesturing toward the glowing spot, is one of your top-secret military bases. It's where you hide the mutants you can't control. Where you poke, prod, and slice them like experimental rats. The feed switched to live footage. First it was grainy, standard security cam stuff. But then the quality sharpened to show what looked like the opening act to a disaster movie. Metal doors were being ripped off their hinges. Alarms howled. Guards ran around in circles like headless chickens, only less effective. The feed switched again, this time to a drone shot from above. Several sleek metallic shapes descended from the sky. They looked like missiles, but they weren't. Not really. "Let this be your education," Magneto said, almost kindly. "Let this be the lesson you refuse to learn the polite way." With a casual flick of his wrist, honestly, he could have been ordering a coffee. The devices landed and triggered in unison. No fireballs. No craters. Just a pulse of invisible energy that made every piece of tech in the facility give up on life. Lights died. Turrets drooped. Guns clicked uselessly. A tank even made a sad little work noise before going completely limp. It was, in a word, satisfying. Camera pan to the containment cells. One by one, the magnetic locks snapped open, freeing dozens of mutants. Some blinked into the light like they hadn't seen daylight in years. Some collapsed to the floor in shock. A few screamed. Couple immediately bolted. All of them were free. Back in the control room, Magneto stepped closer to the camera, his voice lower now, colder, more personal. "This is restraint," he said. "This is mercy. We could have turned that base into radioactive ash. We didn't. Not yet." He let that last part hang in the air like a guillotine. "From today forward, we're done asking for rights we already have. We're not begging for crumbs anymore. We're taking the whole damn table." And with that, the screen cut to black. Millions of people stared at their TVs in slack-jawed silence. Some horrified. Some cheering. One guy in Kansas probably spilled his beer. Several government officials presumably crapped their pants in unison. Mystique turned from the console, arms crossed. "They're going to lose their minds." "Good," Magneto said, sounding like he just won a game of interdimensional chess. "Let them panic. The more they scramble, the easier it'll be for us to take control. A crumbling world is fertile ground for revolution." He turned and strode toward the war room, his crimson cape flaring behind him like he practiced that move in the mirror too. Spoiler, he had. Behind him, the base buzzed to life. Phase 2 was about to begin, and this time there'd be less talking and more screaming. Thrall, nothing says take us seriously like a good old-fashioned existential crisis on live TV.
Hello, everyone! As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500-plus novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.